Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto neglected by family dragon summoner NarHina. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by NarHina and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. In an unknown universe, sparkles of light lifted up to the heavens, the spectators below watched as the last of the dragons departed from this world. The orphan children of those the dragons raised as their own watched with tears as their parents found peace. The magnitude of colors rose, lights of fiery red, irony silver, sky blue, shadowy black and illuminating white. Unknown to observers below, a vortex opened up as the lights rose, one by one the dragon's souls entered, never to return to that world. Outskirts of Konoha, the yellow flash screamed in agony, battling the greatest foe he's ever faced. He knew without a shadow of doubt he would not survive, but in order to ensure his children's future he had no choice. "Ah! Kushina!" cried Minato as his birthing wife had his hand in a death grip. "Fuck off, Minato. I swear you are never going to lay hand on me again." His wife screamed in rage and agony as the first of her babies started to come out. "The man Minato, you would have died long ago if you were in her shoes, but not us women, unlike men, we're strong." Buwako told the yondaime, giving him a look of disapproval. Looking back down she can see bit of yellow, red and orange. "I can see the head just a little more, Kushina." "Push." She screamed and as told Kushina pushed with all her strength, eager to get this hell over with. "Hhhhhh." She screamed one last time before, a look of almost pure bliss and relief crossed her face. "Oh thank Kami-sama it's over." She almost cried in happiness. Buwako put the baby to one side before she came back to attending Kushina. "Now for the other two." Crack. Went Minato's hand. "Oh fuck. Minato you are so dead. How dare you do this to me?" After another few minutes of death threats made in the thorns of pain, Kushina finally gave birth to her three beautiful children. Buwako scooped up the children who were wrapped in blankets. Bringing them over to their mother, Minato went up to retrieve his children. Buwako pulled the children away from him. "Oh no you don't, Ka-san's first, Tu-san's second." She glared at the Hokage, who only sagged in depression. "Damn right. After what I just fucking went through, I get first dibs." The redhead shouted, glaring at the man that put her through that pain and was formulating a plan to get back at him. But all thoughts of Minato's punishment left her mind for now anyway, as her three wonderful babies were given to her. "This one's the oldest," Buwako told her, handing her the one wrapped in orange blanket. She almost squealed as she saw the yellow hair of the boy's father and opened deep blue eyes looking at her. The boy gurgled happily as his eyes saw his mother for the first time. Kushina touched the boy's cheeks, he grabbed onto it, chewing it a bit as Kushina pulled him closer. When he saw her crimson hair he grabbed on it, tugging at it slightly. She knew the perfect name for her oldest. "Hello Naruto-chan." The baby looked at her as if he recognized that was now his name. Buwako handed her the second child. Unlike her brother, she was sleeping peacefully, though she would release a small whine every now and then as she moved not wanting to wake up. The girl had crimson hair like her mother, but her face was mixture of both hers and Minato's. Her eyes were sharper than Naruto's, but not by much, and though her face was round there was a slight sharpness to it. Kushina knew that she would become quite the looker when she grew up and that she would have a hell of a job keeping the boys away from her daughter. The Kami she named her child, hugging her closer, the girl whined a bit as she started to wake up, but Naruto moved closer interested in his Minato. He hugged the girl who calmed down in her Ani-san's arms. Onari-chan's already acting like a big brother. She watched as Naruto curiosity inspected her daughter gently, who was leaning on him as she slept. She looked at Buwako who handed her last child. "And here's your youngest," she stated handing a crying baby. Kushina smiled, trying to calm down her other son. She smiled seeing him look almost an exact replica of his One-san. But he shared the crimson hair of her and his Ni-chan. That was flat instead of spiky. She had the perfect name for him. Menma the boy was a lot more timid than his older siblings. He was bawling his eyes out as Kushina rocked him up and down. However, this caused her daughter to whine as she was once again woken up by the turbulence. Naruto solved this problem by reaching out for his Itato who clung to him and buried himself within his Ani-san, just like his One-san was doing. Kushina could only smile at seeing her children huddled together around her oldest in the center. She just knew they were going to be the best of siblings, and that by the looks of it, Naruto will be looking after his Minato and Itato. Minato had the same thoughts as he looked at his wife, holding their children. The peaceful time was interrupted though when "Ahhhhh." Kushina screamed as pain came from the seal, earning a duo of cries and a whimper from Naruto. "Shit, the seal. I forgot about it." Minato cursed as he rushed and put his hands back on trying to repair it before it breaks. Everyone was so lost in the new family coming together for the first time they forgot about the fox sealed in Kushina's gut. "Don't worry Kushina, I'll have him sealed back in a bit." Minato smiled, a drop of sweat coming down his brow as he struggled. Damn it, the seal almost broken, the Kyuubi could be released any time now. He looked back at his family, seeing Bawako taking the children to safety. With the resolve to protect those precious to him, he doubled his efforts. Ahhhh. Turning to the source of the scream, the Yondaime Hokage's heart stopped. Standing over Bawako's body and two of his newborn children was a cloaked man in a yellow mask with a flame pattern on it. In the arms of the intruder was Naruto, a hand hovering over him threateningly as he whimpered and struggled not to cry. Step away from the Jinchuriki or this child will die in his first minute. Naruto. Both the blonde boy's parents yelled, their son was in danger. What are we going to do? We can't hand Kushina over to him, he's surely after the Kyuubi was Minato's thoughts. I have no choice but to give myself up, our children's safety comes first. Deciding on her plan of action, Kushina began to speak when a miracle happened. Naruto was struggling in the man's arms, he didn't like this scary man and would much rather be back in the arms of that red-haired woman. But at last, no matter how much the newborn struggled, he couldn't get free. Living a cross between a glare and pout, Naruto's baby blue eyes focused on the black hole in the man's mask. He didn't know what it was, so he did the most obvious thing to do when a baby is curious. He poked his finger in the hole. Fuck. You little brat. The man cursed, dropping the baby that almost poked his eye out. Naruto was laughing as he watched the man, trying to make his eye stop hurting. The man's watery Sharingan eye looked ahead, only to catch the fuzzy shape of the yellow flash, charging at him with a Rasengan in one hand and his recently held hostage in the other. Shit. He swore again, struggling through the pain to activate his eye's power. As the Rasengan hit him, Minato watched in shock as the man walked right through him. Stopping before he hit the wall, Minato turned to see the masked villain making his way to his wife. But before he could act and save her, a sizzling sound reached his ears. With a panicked look, Minato looked down at his son in his arms, an active paper bomb attached to the boy's blanket. In the span of a second, Minato's eyes looked over to Kushina and then to his other children still crying on the floor. Damn, not enough time to save them all. Before another second could pass, he disappeared in a flash of yellow, the other two defenseless children safe from the bomb, but all alone with no one to protect them. 10 minutes late, Minato put down Kushina and their other children in the same bed that was currently occupied by Naruto. It was a struggle rescuing them, and the Kyuubi was now on the loss, but he would take care of that soon, though it would require him to make two big sacrifices. Kushina-chan, he whispered to his weakened wife. Minato-kun, the village it needs you, take me with you, and I'll see the fox back inside myself. Kushina breathed out. The Hokage shook his head in refusal. I'm sorry Kushina, but I can't do that. If you seal the Kyuubi inside of you in the state you're in, you'll die. His wife was angry at his refusal for the best plan they had. Minato stopped his wife. I already have a plan. He gave a sad look to their children who were now snuggling into their mother. Kushina, seeing his gaze, looked at the man with disapproval and anger. Minato, you can't. Not our children. She shouted, but she was too weak to stop him as he took their children from her grasp. I'm sorry Kushina, but it's the only way. Don't worry, I'm sure you'll be fine without me. He whispered, a tear in his eye. Kushina reached out with all the strength she could muster, but her husband and children disappeared in a yellow flash. Leaving the soon-to-be grieving widow alone in tears. Minato reappeared near the front lines, biting his thumb and making hand seals. He jumped into the air above the fox and shouted. Kuchius no Jutsu. Summoning Jutsu, a giant web of seal formulas appeared below him, and in a poof of smoke, the chief toad landed right on top of the fox, restricting its movements. Jumping down in front of the two great beasts. Minato summoned an altar, placing his three children on it. The Sandaime looked at the altar. That's no Minato, you can't. In a flash of speed, the Sandaime was gone. Minato looked at his children for what would be the last time. He's only known them for a few minutes at the most, but he already loved them dearly. The Hokage was burdened with a heavy heart, having to leave his children without a father, but it had to be done to save them and the women he loved. Naruto, Okami, Menma, take care of each other, and please look after your Ka-san for me, okay? He told them tearily, but Naruto was the only one awake. I'm sorry for what I'm about to do, but remember Toussaint loves you very much, goodbye. There were so many more things he wanted to say. But he didn't have the time. Any second the fox would break free from Gamabunta's hold. He made the hand signs for the Shikifujin, sealing Jutsu. Reaper Death Seal, prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice to protect his home, his village and most importantly his family. But before he could finish and summon the Shinigami, his world went black as something struck him in the back of the head. Hiruzen looked at his successor. I'm sorry Minato, but it's the duty of the old generation to pave the path for the new. With that thought, he performed the Shikifujin. A large translucent figure emerged behind him, demonic purple skin covered its inhuman body, a white robe draped over it. Its golden eyes looked at the fox in interest. In its mouth was small Tanto, he had white shaggy hair with two blood-red demon horn protruding from his head. As the death god began the ritual to seal the Kyuubi, a small vortex appeared in the sky to prove them. As the death god hand ripped through Sandame Hokage's soul and then through his armor, leaving a hole where his stomach was, but no physical wound. Lights came through the vortex, dropping slowly down to the land below them. The Shinigami's translucent hand clung to the Kyuubi, and with a mighty push from Hiruzen the beast's soul was ripped in half. The old man watched as the beast's yin chakra was torn from it and it decreased to a half of its former size. The man's eyes landed on the red-headed boy out of the 3 children before him. With a quick apology, he ordered the Shinigami to seal the chakra within the boy. As the soul was sealed away, the lights from the vortex increased in number. Lights of different colors congregated to their respective color, forming the shapes of red, sliver, green, black and white dragons. Too busy to notice the dying Hokage ordered the god behind him to seal the Yang chakra away. He chose the girl that had Kushina red hair before the 8 trigram seal finished forming on the boy to her far right. The rest of the Kyuubi vanished as it was pulled into the girl. A red light swirled around her abdomen before it settled into the 8 trigram seal. Before the Reaper could take his soul, however, the god looked up to see the glowing lights of 5 souls. Within accordance of his contract, his hand reached out to claim the souls of deceased dragons as payment for his services. Feeling the Shinigami move against his will, he watched as the hand grabbed the struggling specters of lights that were in the air. Having no idea what the lights were, he ordered the great deity of death to stop, but at last it no longer listened to his commands. Unaware what the lights the Reaper had were, he had no choice but to stop whatever the deity was doing. He looked to the last boy, the one that was spared the Kyuubi's burden. "Sorry, I don't know what he's doing, hopefully whatever that light is it won't cause you trouble." Focusing his mind, he formed a hand seal and ordered the death god to seal the light it now held. The deity was grinning sinisterly as it prepared to devour the exceptional souls before him as payment for his summons. But his grin turned into a scowl as his summoner ordered him to seal his prey into the remaining child. Unable to violate the terms of contract that were set upon his summoning, he reluctantly let go of the souls he held and sealed them into the last child. Turning to the one who ruined his meal intent on enjoying devouring the soul of the one who caused him to lose such delicacies, the Sandane watched as the pissed-off death god approached him. Feeling his soul torn asunder, casting his gaze on the child whose seal was now forming. He had no idea what he sealed and only hoped it wouldn't cause the boy pain as he passed to the next world. Mount Mamboku, the millennium-old sage, opened his ancient eyes having dreamt a new prophecy about the child of prophecy. With his gravelly voice, he spoke of what he saw. The new entity will be born on par with the 9. One will be burdened with this new beast that came from others. They will experience great pain and suffering, losing those that should love them most. 2 paths will open for the child of prophecy, born from the blood of your student. If guided by love, the child will become the dragon of salvation that will protect the world in its time of need. If it loses that love, they shall fall to ruin, leading themselves and the world to its end, becoming the dragon of destruction. Their union will bring new hope or despair. If the child loses his light, darkness awaits those who took their beloved away. In a void of darkness rested a cage. Within that cage was a rainbow-colored orb. What happened came a somewhat female voice, with what seemed like a mixture of others. "I don't know," replied a metallic voice. Like the one before, it sounded like multiple voices were playing in the background as it spoke. "Then, where are we?" came an aged, but almost lighter voice being heard over the multitude of others. Could this be the afterlife? This was another aged voice, but with a slightly deeper tone, being hard than most. "Quite," shouted an almost angered voice that carried power, almost completely overpowering the mixture of voices the others shared. "This is far from what we expected to happen, but this is definitely not a bad thing." The same voice spoke to his companies. "For now, whatever is happening, let's observe. Whatever this cage is, it's keeping us alive somewhat, and I can feel an abundance of some form of energy in the air. For now, let's rest and stabilize our existence." He told his plan of action. All the other voices slightly agreed and went silent as they entered an almost dormant state. Chapter 2. And so, it begins. Minato was fighting off the most powerful enemy up to date. It was invincible. It was the most terrifying thing known to man. The dreaded paperwork. I helped defeat a giant chakra beast of mass destruction, and in the end all I get for it is damn paperwork. Damn you, Saratobi, you knew this would happen. He cursed as he glared at his archenemy, which only got larger by the minute. Oh, come on, I've already pulled all-nighters for 3 days straight. I haven't gotten a chance to even see my family. A small smile appeared, banishing the hopeless situation he was in, his beautiful wife, his lovely children. But then he remembered that his wife was currently pissed at him for his attempted self-sacrifice, and he shivered as the image of his enraged wife came to mind. He quickly picked up the nearest document and began working. Paperwork's not all bad, by the time it's done Kushina-chan will have calmed down enough not to kill me probable. Bang. Came from the door. "Minato, we got a major problem," shouted a familiar voice. Looking up he saw his sensei Jiraiya. Jiraiya-sensei, what do I owe the pleasure, for once you got here before complaints from the hot springs came in. He joked. I came right here, unfortunately my precious hot springs were destroyed in the attack. He cried in tears before shaking himself straight. No time for that. He stated, the seriousness in his voice causing Minato listen carefully to his sensei. The great toad sage has had a prophecy and it concerns your children. That caught Minato's attention. What? What do you mean it involves my children? He and his family only just survived by some miracle and now his family is in trouble once more. Calm down Minato, we'll keep them safe. He made a hand sign activating a silencing seal before pulling a piece of paper out of his pocket. Here's the prophecy. The sage began reading line for line what was on his piece of paper. A new entity will be born on par with the 9. One will be burdened with this new beast that came from others. They will experience great pain and suffering, losing those that should love them most. 2 paths will open for the child of prophecy, born from the blood of your student. If guided by love, the child will become the dragon of salvation that will protect the world in its time of need. If it loses that love, they shall fall to ruin, leading themselves and the world to its end, becoming the dragon of destruction. Their union will bring new hope or despair. If the child loses his light, darkness awaits those who took their beloved away. Jiraiya looked at Minato, his black eyes gazing into his student's blue orbs. It's hard to decipher, but several things are clear. The child of prophecy is one of your children. They will experience great pain if we don't do something, and they could very well end up dying and dooming the rest of the world along with them. He put the paper down on the desk for Minato to inspect at his leisure. He didn't want to believe in some prophecy, but there was one thing that made it creditable. First, we need to figure out what this new entity is. By the 9 we can be assured that it's referring to the Biju, but for something to be on par with them is almost unbelievable. I wouldn't be so sure of that. Minato commented, catching his sensei's attention. It would make sense if this new entity was another Biju. He told his sensei hesitantly, afraid what this prophecy could mean for his children. What do you mean Minato? There were only 9 Biju last time I checked. Jiraiya was still mostly unaware of the whole Biju attack, but was informed of his sensei passing, but he had a duty as Minato's sensei and to the man's children as their godfather to keep them safe. Not anymore. He took a breath. Sandaime Sama split the fox in 2 before sealing it away. There are now 2 Kyubis. He dropped the bombshell and realization hit the sage. That's it. Out of the 9 Biju, the Kyuubi possesses the most chakra and strongest healing factor. He may not share the special abilities all the other beasts have, but even only at half strength, he's more than a match for any of the other 9, and it came from the other Biju. With it being sealed into one of your children, all the conditions for the 2 lines are met. The legendary ninja stated. Jiraiya, are you sure it's accurate? I mean, it came from an old toad who is senile. Minato argued, he didn't want to believe the prophecy, and he's met the toad sage before, and it was obvious the toad was way past his prime. Minato, this was predicated during the Kyuubi's attack. The old toad may be senile, but that hasn't affected his powers. We can't ignore it, especially with what it says about your children. Minato's eyes landed on the next line. They will experience great pain and suffering, losing those that should love them most. But what does that mean? Minato asked, and Jiraiya gave him a look of pity. It's obvious. Who would he lose that love him most? It's obvious it means your family. Minato's eyes went wide at that. Shock and panic filled his eyes. Calm down kid, well stop it no matter what, but first we need to figure out the rest. The next line speaks for itself, it's the ones after we have a problem with. Calming down, Minato looked at the paper seriously. He wouldn't take the chances of losing his family. He read the rest of the prophecy. If guided by love, the child will become the dragon of salvation that will protect the world in its time of need. If it loses that love, they shall fall to ruin, leading themselves and the world to its end, becoming the dragon of destruction. What about those 2 lines? Dragons. They're just legends. Minato spoke. Dragons didn't make sense. They haven't been heard of in thousands of years. Dragons are known widely as deities of destruction or protection. It's most likely a reference to what the child of prophecy could become. We need to make sure that he goes down the right path. Jiraiya stated, and Minato agreed. He read the last part. Their union will bring new hope or despair. If the child loses their light, darkness awaits those who took their beloved away. That last one is the hardest. It's most likely refers to the Kyuubi being bound and controlled by your child or the 2 children fighting together. But if one of them loses this light, which can assume is a person they care deeply, for they will go down the path of revenge and darkness. Jiraiya spoke up. They had all the lines deciphered now, or at least understood it enough to make sure the child of prophecy saves the world. So, what are we going to do? How can we save my family and children? Minato pleaded with his sensei for answers. Only one thing we can do is prepare them. As soon as they're old enough, we'll start training the ones with the Kyuubi. Do you have any idea which one could be the child of prophecy? The nod of no he received was not what he wanted. Then we'll train both of them and make sure they can fight side by side with one another, as well as make sure they can control the Kyuubi. Minato nodded, agreeing with his sensei's plan. He would do anything to save his family. Kushina was busy recovering, soon aid was helping, with the children having come to visit and help out, she quickly fell in love with her godchildren and has even decided to stay in the village permanently. She looked at her triplets playing around on the floor. When she found out about the seals, she was terrified of how they would be treated, and although the village was at first skeptical thanks to the help Minato and herself, they quickly came around and were warming up to the twins that held Kyuubi and treating them as the heroes they were for their sacrifice. She giggled as she watched Naruto play with Akami, knocking her over. All of her children held different personalities. Naruto was most like her, always moving and playing around, taking the initiative. Akami was more like Minato, she still played with Naruto, but she was quieter and calmer until something got her hyped up. Menma was quietest and most like Minato, he would play on his own and was a bit shy. It reminded her of when Minato used to watch her from afar and would turn away in embarrassment whenever she got close. However, she didn't need to worry about him being antisocial as Naruto tackled his Itato, gently coaxing him into joining the other two in play. Naru-chan was such a considerate Oni-san, he would always go that extra mile to make sure Menma joined them to play, bring the boy out of his shell a bit. She just knew Naruto would stand by his siblings and protect them. Over 2 years later, the day before the triplets' third birthday, Naruto and his siblings were sitting down on the settee. He sat in between his two siblings. Naruto was excited. Tomorrow marked the official start of his ninja training, and then he could start on his dream to become Hokage like his dad. As Ka-san and Tu-san came in and sat down, they seemed to have a serious look on their faces. One sat down. Minato gave a heavy sigh. "There's something very important we need to tell you." He waited until he had their undivided attention before continuing. "You all know the story of Sandaime defeating the Kyuubi, don't you?" They just nodded. How the Sandaime saved their Tu-san was one of their favorite bedtime stories. "What I'm about to tell you is how he defeated it." Minato went on to explain how Menma and Akami had a half of the Kyuubi each inside them. Kushina had to stop herself from going over and hugging them. Menma was almost in tears now that he was told, thinking that he was the fox. Naruto just calmly listened and then looked at his two siblings who were about to cry. Looking at his Itato, he leaned close and poked Menma's stomach, tickling him and causing the almost crying boy to laugh as Naruto kept doing it. "Ani-san, stop that tickles." Menma laughed. "What, I'm just petting the fox." Naruto grinned before he turned to Akami with an evil grin. Akami backed away from her Ani-san in fear. "No, Ani-san, don't you dare." Naruto pounced on her and started tickling her too. "Ahhh. No, stop, Menma, Itato, help." Menma latched onto his Ani from behind, tickling him. Soon his Oni-chan joined in and together they defeated their evil Ani. Kushina and Minato could only join the laughter as the children had their tickle war. Once everyone calmed down, Minato ruffled Naruto's hair affectionately. "Good job, kiddo. Of course, I'm the Ani, I'll always protect my Minato and Itato." Naruto grinned ear to ear. Both parents knew they could believe in those words, and they both felt a pang of guilt, knowing how much he's been looking forward to tomorrow. "Naruto, we also have something important to tell you." The young boy looked into his Tu-san's eyes with excitement, causing the man to grimace somewhat. "You know what day it is tomorrow, right?" he asked, and the boy jumped up and loudly exclaimed. "Yep, it's the 3rd anniversary of the Kyuubi defeated and the festival of the Sandaime Hokage. Festival of the 3rd Fire Shadow, but more importantly, it's our 3rd birthday and the day we start our ninja training. Just wait, I'm going to be Hokage before you know it." He shouted, grinning from ear to ear. "No way. I'm going to be Hokage, Naruto Ani-san," stated his smooth red-headed look-alike. Menma was smiling at his Ani, and the parents watched the sibling rivalry before the talk turned for the worse. "DT Menma, Itato, you always copy Ani-san, don't you?" giggled the middle child Akane. Both she and Menma looked up to their Ani-san as their role model. But Menma was the one who tried to emulate him the most, down to his PJs, morning routine and of course his dream. "Menma, Itato, it's so cute seeing you and Ani-san together, you look so alike and act the same." She knew that the main reason Menma was so attached to his Ani was because unlike the two of them, he was the shyest of the children and had a hard time coming out of his shell. "But Ani-san always helps you out." "No, I don't. If anything, he's copying me." The red-haired boy pouted, arms crossed, a slight blush on his face. Seeing his Itato's embarrassment, Naruto got a foxy grin. "Aw, Minato, don't tease him, after all, why wouldn't he want to copy the superstar?" he exclaimed, pointing to himself and showing his 3-year-old muscles. There was silence as the younger duo of the triplets looked at their Ani, both picked up the close pillow and threw it at their boasting big brother. Pillow fight. The two siblings once again ganged up on their big brother. Minato giggled at the sight before he clapped both hands together. "Clap. Alright, that's enough," he shouted. The triplets immediately stopped. Nobody moved until one pillow that was still in the air came down on Naruto, who glared at the perpetrator. Minato followed, glaring at his feathered covered wife who snuck her way into the fight when it started. Kushina tried to look innocent, but her husband glare continued until she pouted and took her spot by his side. Seeing how happy they all were just made it harder for parents. Yes, tomorrow Akami and Menma will start their training. Hell yeah. Menma shouted excited like his Ani normally would be. But as Wani and Ani-san realized the absence of a certain name. To-san, what about Ani-san, won't he be training with us? Akami questioned, a frown marring her pretty face. Naruto looked at his parents in surprise, hurt and betrayal, which felt like a knife to the heart of both his To-san and Ka-san. Yes, about that, you see, we want to make sure Menma and Akami can control their tenants before you join. We don't want you accidentally getting hurt, right? Minato told them with sadness. His sensei was the one to recommend it, but it didn't make it feel any less wrong. Minato, we need to make sure both Menma and Akami are strong and work well together. I know it's hard, but I think we should have Naruto left out of the training at first, his sensei stated. What, but why? Minato pleaded, not wanting to push aside his own child. Don't worry, you can get back to him after a year or so once the twins have started getting the hang of the Kyuubi. We need to do this, Minato, to prevent the prophecy, and we don't want either of them hurting Naruto by accident, do we? Menma is slower and has confidence problems. He could end up getting jealous when both his Ani and Wani are ahead of him, and if Naruto and Akami get closer, it could put a bigger strain on their relationship. As the conversation he had with his sensei came to mind and he faced his Musuko's hurt look, he reminded himself that it was all for the greater good. It's only for a year, we'll get back and make it all up to Naruto once the two are up to speed, he told himself, but he was still pushing his oldest away even more. Don't worry, Naru-chan, we'll get back to you next year when the two get up to speed, I promise, and then Uzumaki never goes back on their word. His wife consulted their oldest, with a hug. Naruto looked up and asked, his voice slightly broken. It's to make sure Minato and Itato are okay, right? He asked, eyes sparkling with unshed tears. Yeah, don't worry, once they're up to speed you can join us again. Minato told him, putting a hand on his shoulder. Then I'll do it, next year I'll catch up and be Hokage before you know it. Naruto shouted, faking being strong to protect his siblings. Both his younger siblings gave a small smile. No way, Ani-san, by the time you join I'll already be Hokage. Menma boosted, still copying his beloved Ani. Yeah, you better catch up, training would be boring without our favorite knucklehead to liven things up. Akami joked, causing a moan of protest from her brother. Hey. Minato and Kushina could only watch, hoping they made the right choice. They were happy Naruto didn't seem to mind. Or at least as far as they could tell, as the boy put on a brave face for his loved ones. The next day, October 10th, Naruto watched as his godfather ignored him, handing presents filled with ninja equipment to his siblings. But it wasn't just him, everyone gave presents to only his Minato and Itato, all ninja equipment. He watched from afar as Menma and Akami opened their presents, showing off their new practice kunai and shuriken, as well as their training outfits. He looked at his own presents, sat in a corner all on his own. They were few in number, since most of the family, friends and the village seemed to treat his siblings better than him. But his parents brought a shirt, books and raiment. They were small compared to his siblings' piles of presents, but at least he wasn't completely left out. As his parents brought the birthday cake, a lone tear dripped down his cheeks. He didn't like being excluded, he hated it. The village ignored him in favor of his siblings, treating them like heroes. He knows now why. They kept the monstrous Kyuubi at bay since their birth. The boy turned and went to his room, not being able to stand seeing his siblings celebrating and showing off their new training gear. If being excluded was what he had to do to keep his younger siblings safe, then he would do it gladly. After all, he was their Ani-san, the oldest. It was his duty to look after his beloved Minato and Itato, protect them and keeping them from harm. After all, we are family, and an Uzumaki always stands by their family. He recited one of the Uzumaki clan's creeds. His Ka-san made sure him and his siblings knew the importance of family. He took that to heart and always made sure his siblings were safe and never showed how much he was truly hurt on the inside. He loved his family more than anything in the world, and that would be his greatest undoing. While the birthday cake was brought out, no one noticed that one of the birthday children wasn't there. They don't notice his absence as Menma and Akami blew out the candles. Nor did they notice that the part of the cake with that boy's name was the first to be cut and shared, leaving the cake with the icing that spelled out happy birthday Akami. Menma, the name of the forgotten child, was just cut off, forgotten for the first time as the rest of the family celebrated. Naruto went straight to sleep, eager to start the new day. Just 1 year and then we can all celebrate together again. Chapter 3. A new friend. Author's note. So sorry, I actually had this chapter done for a while, but ended up forgetting about it as apology. I'll be uploading the next chapter soon, and I'll try and get a few more out before I switch stories again. Hinata was having a wonderful day. Her mother finally took her to the park to play with other children. She was so looking forward to it. As heiress, she wasn't allowed to play with the other children in the Hyuga compound. It was frowned upon for the heiress to associate with those beneath her. But her mother was finally able to sneak her out to play in the park. She was so excited to play with other children, unfortunately that's not what happened. Hey freak, get lost. We don't want your wide-eyed freaks playing with us. A 5-year-old boy pushed Hinata to the ground, hurting her. Yeah, your clan thinks you're all high and mighty, but I got news for you, you're not. Another boy shouted, grabbing Hinata by the hair, causing her to cry. Ha-chan. She cried, hoping her mother would save her. Aw, would you look at that. The Byakugan monster is calling for her monster Ka-san, what a crybaby. He went to punch Hinata, but before he could, a fist came out of nowhere, knocking him back. Blue eyes glared at the 3 bullies. Boys shouldn't pick on girls, you big bullies. Hinata looked at her savior to see a boy about her age, bright blonde hair and an orange shirt with a red spiral on the back. Who do you think you are, you shrimp? Shouted one of the bullies to her savior. Me? I'm Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, future Hokage. He exclaimed. Liar, Hokage-sama only has 2 children, and they're both redheads. Shouted one of the bullies. Naruto flinched at that. He knew that Izutado and Minato were the most well-known children, but it still hurt. I am to his son. Naruto shouted with pride. Hinata looked at her savior as he shouted. Oh really? Well then, we'll have to teach you not to lie about our Hokage, get him. One of the bullies exclaimed. Hinata watched in admiration as the boy who rescued her didn't back down. Bring it. I'll teach you not to pick on girls. One of the bullies charged, but Naruto weaved under his punch and threw an uppercut to the cheek. The bully staggered back, but Naruto wasn't strong enough to do more. One of the other bullies came and punched Naruto in the face. It looked like he was going to fall, but just before he did, he regained his balance. Naruto ran right at the boy, jumping in the air and counter-attacking with a punch to the face, sending the boy to the ground. Naruto landed on the boy and started punching him repeatedly until he bled. Shocked from getting their asses kicked by a 3-year-old, the 2 remaining bullies watched as their friend got beaten. When they finally came to, they charged and an all-out brawl ensued. Hinata watched in admiration, grimacing at the sight of blood and every hit her savior took. What she was seeing wasn't the sparring matches she was used to, but a straight-up fight where they tried to hurt each other as much as possible. There was no style, no rules, no safety measures, just children trying to kill each other. But she watched mesmerized, her pale lavender eyes focused solely on her savior. He was her age and size, but he was holding his own against the 3 5-year-olds. He was at a disadvantage, he was bruised and bleeding, fighting 3 against 1. But no matter how hard they hit him, he just wouldn't fall. Every time it looked like he was about to fall, he would stop himself by sheer force of will and then launch at his opponent, getting as many hits as he could in. He was like an unstoppable force. No matter how much they hit him, he just kept going back for more. Despite how much pain he was surely in, he didn't stop. He kept protecting her despite the pain, and that meant so much to Hinata. No one has ever gone so far for her before. The bullies were shitting themselves. Sure, they were almost double the boy's age, were bigger and stronger, and hit him outnumbered. But no matter how much they hit him, the damn freak wouldn't go down. Every time it looked like they won, the brat would charge at one of them, attacking them wildly until they could get him. He just ignored most of the hits they inflicted and kept attacking. And to the bullies, who were used to beating everyone else easily, having someone that just won't go down was terrifying. You monster, just stay down already. One of them roared. The fight continued for a few minutes until the bullies started to wear down from Naruto's consent charges. The psychological damage done by the fact that he kept coming and coming, added to their own injures, caused them to flee in terror from the monster. He's a monster. They shouted as they fled. Hinata looked at her blonde savior. He looked to her, he was breathing heavily and bruised all over. His blue orbs looked at her, and she felt a warmth spread through as her heart and pulse quickened, and she felt all fuzzy inside. What's happening to me, Ani-san? Shouted a duo of voices as 2 redheads showed up. What happened? Asked a girl with long red hair that went down her back and violet eyes. She wore a purple training outfit with red on the trims and a red spiral on the back. Hey, are you alright? Stuttered the boy. He looked like an exact replica of the boy who saved her, but his hair was flat and smooth instead of spiky, more like her own. He also had violet eyes, but there was a tint of blue in them, making them look darker. Minato. I'm fine, just a fight. Naruto smiled, his bruised and bloodied face on display. You don't look fine. Once I get my hands on the ones who did this to my Ani, the Akami went off, causing her 2 brothers to move back. It was scary how she acted so much like their 2-san 1 minute and then became like their Ka-chan when enraged. When Ichan Menma whispered, causing the girl to calm down. Damn it Naruto Ani-san, what were you thinking getting into a fight? You haven't started training yet. She admonished. Naruto just smiled. Well, I had to save this girl and besides, I won. He laughed. You won, but what would have happened if you didn't and we didn't make it in time? She said as she turned her eyes to the young Hyuga. Hinata jumped as violet eyes landed on her. She started to squirm as the other boy looked her way too, and all eyes were on hers. Menma blushed as he caught sight of her. She's so beautiful, he thought in a trance, feeling so embarrassed. Naruto paced his siblings and made his way to the Hyuga. Thump, thump, thump went Hinata's heart as the boy approached her step by step. Thump, 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 it got faster as he got closer. Naruto lowered himself down until sapphire blue met lavender. Hinata felt heat rush to her face as a fuzzy feeling overcame her and she blushed. "Hey, are you alright?" Naruto whispered gently. His voice was so kind, so soothing, that Hinata just got lost in it and could only dumbly nod as she admired the handsome boy in front of her. But he whispered. A hand gently reached out and patted her ruined hair down. Hinata almost let out a hum of approval as she felt the boy's fingers stroke her hair lovingly. "A pretty girl like you shouldn't cry." Hinata blushed, disappointed when his hand left her head. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze," he smiled and then pointed to the girl. "And that's my Minato." Hinata followed Naruto's finger like she was in a trance at the boy in front of her every beck and call. Her eyes landed on the red-head girl, who greeted her with a nod. "I'm Akami Uzumaki Namikaze." "Sorry about that, Ani-san can be a handful at times." She smiled, Hinata just nodded back, still in her daze. She followed Naruto's hand as it pointed at the boy on instinct. "And that's my Atautomi," he stated, but was cut off as the boy tried to introduce himself, emphasis on tired. "Emmi Menma Uzumaki na Namikaze," the red-headed boy that looked like a copy of her savior stuttered, madly blushing. He was belittling himself for stuttering and was extremely jealous of his Ani-san for being so close and touching her silky blue hair. Naruto looked back at the girl. "And you?" he asked, his bright blue eyes sparkling. "Hi Hinata Hyuga." Hinata squeaked back, blushing a great shade of red like Menma did before. Naruto just gave her a smile that took her breath away, holding out his hand. "So, would you like to play with us?" Hinata was in pure and utter bliss, plain and simple. Not only did this kind, gentle, wonderful boy save her, but he was offering to let her play with him, which was something she always wanted to do. She took his hand slowly. She basked in how warm and soft it felt and allowed Naruto to pull her up. When Naruto started leading her away, she followed like a lost puppy who just found her new owner. What followed was the best times of her life. Naruto-kun was so kind and caring. He made sure she was involved with everything and he would always smile at her in that special way that got her heart pumping. When she failed, he didn't insult her or tell her to go away. He only encouraged her to do better. Naruto came over to her, causing Hinata to panic. He stepped behind her, taking both of Hinata's hand in his as she held the ball. "You need to push like so," he whispered in her ear. She could feel the breath go down her neck, giving her a pleasurable shiver. The warmth of his body that she just leaned into as he stood behind her, the feeling of his hands over hers. She loved it. She relished contact with him. She never felt anything so amazing as what she felt when she was around her Naruto-kun. Menma just watched the two as they went on in their own little world as Naruto helped Hinata with how to throw the ball. His eyes blazed green and his teeth clenched, grinding in jealousy. "I wish I was the one." Hinata-chan was all over. For the first time, Menma could say he hated and envied his Ani. The group played all day. Naruto and Hinata seemed to have become really close, smiling so much that you wouldn't guess that they only just met. Menma tried to get as close to Hinata as he could without being too close to his Ani, and Akami just played happily, thankful to have another girl along. When the day finally ended and the sun was setting, painting the sky orange, their playtime was over. "Hinata-chan," called a feminine voice. "Ha-chan." Hinata squealed, leaping into her mother's arms. Her mother just smiled before she realized the state her little angel was in. Her clothes were dirty and her face was smudged with faded tear marks. Her hair was slightly messy, but it looked like it was fixed by someone. "Hinata-chan, what happened?" she asked in concern, lowering herself to her level and inspecting her daughter more. Hinata blushed as she remembered how Naruto-kun proudly protected her from those bullies. Her mother wasn't ignorant and noticed the blush instantly. "Hinata-chan, what have you been up to?" She smiled as she thought about what could make her girl blush like that. Hinata was fidgeting under her mother's gaze. Some bullies at the mention of bullies, an almost lavender flame burned into the Hyuga mother's eyes, causing the girl to almost shout out the last bit. "But Naruto-kun saved me." Hinata covered her mouth, blushing bright red at what she just shouted. "Hinata-chan." Naruto shouted, running to Hinata's aid at her shout. "Are you alright?" he asked looking around. "Did those bullies come back?" Her mother just smiled as the bruised boy looked around for anyone trying to hurt her daughter. It was obvious by his state that he fought very hard to protect her. "So, you must be Naruto-kun. Hinata-chan told me you saved her from some mean bullies. Thank you so much for saving my daughter." She smiled, causing Naruto to blush as he looked at the women in curiosity. "Oh, how rude of me, I'm Hitomi Hyuga, Hinata's Kasan." She introduced herself. Naruto did the same. "Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, and don't worry, I'll always protect Hinata-chan, that's a promise, and I never go back on my word because that's my nindo." he proclaimed, causing Hitomi to laugh. Well, please take care of my daughter. I'm sure she'll be in good hands in the future with you always by her side. She complimented, watching as her daughter squirmed at what she was implying. Yeah, don't worry. I won't let anything happen to Hinata-chan and will always be by her side to protect her. Naruto exclaimed, having no idea what his words were doing to Hinata. Ani-san, it's time to go. Called his punctual Minato. Okay. He called back. Bye Hinata-chan, I hope we can play again. He said as he left. Bye Naruto-kun, Menma and Akami. She shouted, getting waves of goodbyes from all of them. Menma was especially happy when she said his name. Hitomi gave her daughter an evil smirk. Suo. My Hinata-chan's got a new boyfriend, make sure you look after him, he's a keeper. Hinata turned bright red as thoughts of her and Naruto-kun becoming a couple in the future come to her mind. She did something which will become a long-time habit of hers. She fainted. Hitomi caught her daughter as she went limp and fell to the ground mumbling Naruto-kun. Yep, he's definitely a keeper. Hitomi remarked before she picked up her daughter and left. Naruto was walking back, a smile on his face as he and his siblings talked about the day and their new friend. However, when they got back, they were not met with a welcome home, or at least Naruto wasn't. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Their mother shouted, scaring the hell out of triplets. They looked up in fear as the red-hot habanero was on a warpath. All the children were shaking in their boots as their mother stopped in front of Naruto. Naruto, what is the meaning of this, she shouted, pointing to 3 adults and children who were beaten up. Naruto recognized them as the bullies that attacked Hinata-chan, and his blue orbs got darker as he glared at the bullies, making them squirm. I was told you beat these 3 boys up, is that true, she asked. Naruto gave a nod, still giving the 3 a glare of hatred. Naruto, apologize right now. Kushina demanded. Naruto looked at his Ka-san in surprise. But Ka-chan, he tried to explain, but was cut off. No, buts, young man. You can't just beat up 3 innocent boys. If this was what you would have used it for, it's a good thing you didn't start your training. You need to be more responsible, now apologize. She told the boy, having no idea what her words were doing to her son as she demanded him to apologize, not knowing what really happened. Naruto shook and hurt in anger. His Ka-chan refused to hear him out and she reminded him about that he was excluded. But worst of all he could see was Hinata-chan's crying as she screamed for help. No, he whispered. What was that? Kushina questioned, not having heard him. No. I won't apologize when it was their own fault. He shouted, taking everyone aback, rule number 1 in the Uzumaki Namikaze family. Never, ever, make Kushina mad. Then you're grounded. And you can go to bed without dinner tonight. Their Ka-chan roared, not used to being ignored, nor shouted at. Naruto reluctantly made his way to his room, sending a glare to the bullies that promised payback if he ever saw them again. Menma and Akami really didn't know what was going and were too scared of their Ka-chan to speak up to their Ani's defense. They weren't there to see the fight, nor what the bullies did to Hinata, even if they knew about it. They watched as their Ka-chan went back to apologizing to the parents. About a month later, December 27, Hinata became an almost unofficial member of the Namikaze family. Kushina loved having her around and visiting her old friend Hitomi. This went double for the kids, and Hinata loved being able to see Naruto every day, who kept his promise of keeping her safe despite the constant telling offs by his mother. The day was the day Hinata turned 3, and Naruto was looking forward to giving his best friend his gift. But sadly, one thing stopped him from rushing over to see Hinata straight away. Ka-chan, do we need to go, whined Naruto as his Ka-chan put a kimono on him. It was orange and had the Uzumaki crest on the back. Yes Naruto, it's an important event for the village and as the family of the Hokage, we need to attend. His Ka-chan told him, finishing tying his kimono. But it's Hinata-chan's birthday today. He whined again, not wanting to miss the first birthday they had as friends. I know, but we can't miss it. These peace talks are a major event and besides the Hyuga, who requested special permission to miss it for Hinata's birthday and integration as clan heir, everyone has to attend. Her oldest pouted at this. He really didn't want to miss Hinata-chan's birthday and it hurt his mother to see him so down. Tell you what, I'll see about asking Minato if we can leave early to see Hinata-chan, okay? Naruto brightened at this. Really Ka-chan, we can see Hinata-chan after his Itato asked with hope, having grown attached to the Hyuga as much as Naruto. Kushina just smiled. Yes, I promise. Alright. Both boys cheered. Akami giggled, she too was happy to see Hinata but wasn't as vocal. Alright, let's go. Kushina stated, Menma and Akami each grabbed one of their Ka-chan's hands while Naruto took point. It was the standard Uzumaki Namikaze formation. The youngest protected their Ka-chan from the sides while Naruto protected both his Ka-chan and his siblings from the front. At least that's what they bragged about and made holding their Ka-chan's hands sound cool. A few minutes later, Naruto was standing next to his siblings, father and mother. The citizens of Konoha littered the streets parted down the middle as a parade came down along with a single carriage. The carriage stopped outside the Hokage Tower, and out came a man with brown hair and headband with a symbol of a cloud on it. "Greetings, Ambassador of Kumogakure. Konohagakure and the Land of Fire welcome you into our home. May this treaty bring everlasting peace." Minato smiled as he greeted the Kumo ambassador, offering his hand. "Greetings, Hokage-sama." The ambassador bowed. "I too hope these peace talks go well for our countries." He shook Minato's hand, causing more cheering from the crowd behind them. "I see you brought your children." His eyes landed on a pair of red-headed twins, both felt a shiver go up their spines as the man's eyes gazed at them longer than necessary. Naruto moved in front of his Itato and Minato, earning a silent thank you from both. Naruto gave a small bow. "Greetings Ambassador Sama, I hope you find Konoha to your liking during your stay," Naruto said slowly. He acted polite since he was taught how important it was to show respect as the Hokage's son and his Kachan will give him hell if he didn't. But on the inside, he wanted to beat up the man who was giving his beloved siblings a weird look. "Ah, what polite young man. I didn't know you had a third child Hokage-sama, your red-headed twins and their beautiful mother are well known in the elemental nations as the last true Uzumaki." He bowed again to Kushina. His eyes staying on her form too long for Minato's or Naruto's taste. "Yes, well, Naruto here inherited my hair, but that doesn't make him any less Uzumaki. As a matter of fact, he takes after my wife the most," he told them before waving a hand inside. "Now let's continue with the meeting inside, shall we?" "Of course." The ambassador followed Minato and his family in. Several hours later, Naruto and his siblings were mingling with the guests, mostly the other clan heirs. He didn't get along with most of them, besides the Akimichi, Nara and Inyazuka heirs. Izumoto got along with the Yamanaka heir quite fine when she wasn't fangirling over the Uchiha, and Menma seemed to get along with the Silent Aburam clan, which both joined Naruto's group after he got the two silent people to join in. The Uchiha heir also joined them and he was cool, though he bragged about his Nai-san way too much. Now he knows what others go through when his Itato brags about him. It was getting late and the boy couldn't keep his mind off the one clan heir not there, Hinata-chan. He went over to his Kachan, who was smiling as she talked to her friends the mothers of Konoha's clans. "Kachan, can we go and see Hinata-chan now please?" Naruto asked. It was getting late and he wouldn't be able to see her before bedtime if they don't leave now. Looking at her son, who was giving her puppy dog eyes, she gave in. "Okay son, I'll go and ask Toussaint first okay, wait here." Kushina ruffled her son's hair before she went to see her husband. Minato was talking to the ambassador with his sensei Jiraiya next time. "Minato-kun, Naruto wants to go and see Hinata, is it okay if we leave early?" she asked, causing the three men to look at her. The ambassador seemed to give a strange look as he asked. "Leaving so soon Kushina-sama?" Minato was about to give the okay when his sensei put his hand on his shoulder. "Minato, can I talk you for a sec?" he whispered, leading Minato away while Kushina talked with the ambassador. "What is it sensei?" Minato asked, curious why his sensei led him away from the party. "Minato, you can't let Kushina and the twins leave," the Toad Sage said in a hushed voice. "Sensei, I don't understand." Minato inquired, not understanding why his family can't leave early. They only needed to attend in the first place for appearances. "Damn it. Minato, don't you remember what happened to Kushina years ago? We can't risk that happening to the twins. It's better if they stay here and go home with you where they're safe. Kumo's not known for playing fair," he told his student, keeping his voice down. Minato remembered that night well. It was the night he first approached Kushina to save her from becoming Kumo's breeding stock. He also remembered the fear of almost losing her, and it was doubled at the thought of either of his children becoming Kumo's prisoners. "You're right sensei." The two went back to join the party. "Sorry Kushina-chan, but I think it's best you stay here with me. The party will be over in a few hours," he told his wife. Kushina was going to argue, not wanting to break her promise, but was interrupted. "That's a brilliant idea Hokage-sama. It's not every day I get to hear about one of the legendary clans in the ninja world like the Uzumaki clan." The ambassador spoke up and since she couldn't be rude and deny him, she was stuck speaking to him for the rest of the night. Another 2 hours later, Naruto waited, but his Kachan never came back and they stayed at the party until it was finished. Finally finished, Naruto pleaded. "We can see Hinata-chan now, can't we?" Kushina looked at her son sadly. It hurt so much knowing she broke her promise to him. "I'm sorry Naru-chan, but it's too late now." Naruto looked sad and hurt as his Kachan brought herself to his level, even calling him by his affectionate nickname, hoping to lessen the blow. But you promised." He whined. His Kachan never broke a promise to him before. "I know, but I'll take you first thing in the morning, I promise okay," she told him. But like the one before, this too will become one of the many promises that she failed to keep. Naruto only nodded sadly, looking down and keeping quiet the rest of the trip home. It unnerved the family how quiet their knucklehead was tonight. Kushina just finished putting the triplets to bed, but as soon as his Kachan left his room, Naruto jumped out of bed, still fully clothed. He opened his window, looking back to his door, he whispered sadly. "Sorry Kachan, I promised Hinata-chan I'd give her present." With those words the boy jumped out the window. Naruto arrived at the Hyuga compound in record time. Like his dad said, he was still in Uzumaki and possessed almost endless stamina. He easily snuck in through a loose brick in the wall, one that only someone his size could fit through. Once on the other side, he put the brick back so he wouldn't get caught and he made his way to Hinata-chan's room. After sneaking past half the compound that seemed unusually quiet tonight, he made it just outside Hinata-chan's room. But he saw a shadow sneaking through the garden like him. On closer inspection, he saw it was a ninja in a strange cloak. But Naruto's eyes widened in fear as he spotted the tied up and unconscious Hinata-chan on the man's shoulders. "Hinata-chan!" Naruto shouted as loud as he could, startling the man as he turned to see the blonde brat. Naruto charged, shouting. "What the hell have you done to Hinata-chan?" The shout woke up most of the compound. The ninja turned, seeing lights coming on and footsteps heard, not concerned with the blonde brat at all. This was a big mistake because like a blonde-haired rocket, Naruto covered the distance between him and the man in an instant. Naruto ready to punch and hit the man right below the legs, where a man's most precious treasure laid. "Fuck. You damn brat." He cursed as he held his damaged balls. After the last few months of street fighting and the momentum behind him, Naruto's punch packed quite a wallop. The man dropped the kidnapped Hyuga heiress and Naruto rushed to her side, untying the bindings. He shook Hinata, who groaned, starting to wake up. The man could clearly hear the coming Hyuga, who now knew he was here. He had to deal with the brat quickly and leave as he went through hand signs. Lightning style. Thunderbolt. He called out, lighting blue lighting from his hands that headed straight to Naruto. Naruto looked at the lightning just in time to see it hit him. His whole body was shocked as it hit him and he gave a silent scream of pain as the electricity filled him, destroying his nerves and killing him. Hinata woke up just at the moment to see Naruto trying to scream in pain as blue light electrocuted him. "Naruto-kun." She cried in horror as her beloved was being murdered right in front of her. Naruto, just barely conscious, struggled to look at her. He couldn't let her down. He had to protect his most precious person. "I can't give up, Hinata-chan needs me." Naruto struggled, but the pain faded slowly and almost completely, and for a second Naruto thought he was dead, as all traces of pain vanished. "I'm sorry, Hinata-chan." As he said those thoughts, the blue lighting started moving towards his open mouth, as if something was sucking it up. The blue light entered the mouth. Both the kidnapper and Hinata watched in amazement as Naruto seemed to eat the lighting. Before they knew it, the lightning attack was gone without a trace. Blue-slitted eyes glared at the man. Naruto's skin still had a few burns, and his clothes were burning from the attack, but he didn't care. The pain was gone, he felt some power swell up inside him as a warmth spread from his stomach. Naruto charged, rushing the man with speed a 3-year-old shouldn't possess. With a glowing yellow hand of what looked to be enveloped in lighting, Naruto punched the man in the balls a second time. The force and power behind it tripled the power of his first punch. The electricity around his hand entered the man, destroying any hope of ever having children and causing unimaginable pain as it stimulated the nerves. The man gave an ear-piercing scream that was heard all throughout the village. "Ah!" The man collapsed, his mind unable to handle the pain or loss of his manhood. Naruto looked at the man with a grin. He had no idea what happened, but he had done it. He protected Hinata-chan. The power that filled him left and he dropped to the ground exhausted. He was caught by a crying Hinata who hugged him with a death grip. "And Naruto-kun, I thought I lost you." She cried into his shoulder. Naruto struggled to return her hug and try to reassure her. There, Hinata-chan. "I'm okay, I promise." The girl just kept crying. The Ashi and the rest of the Hyuga clan arrived at the scene, surprised to see the children and the downed man. Seeing Naruto was most likely injured, he ordered. "Get the children to safety and give them medical attention now." He barked out and 2 branch members moved in. Naruto picked up a small box that fell out of his pocket when he was hit. He and Hinata were taken to the clan doctor. The Ashi and his brother approached the downed man, turning him over. They removed the mask, only to see brown hair and beard. "Ani-sama, this is his brother," started, but he cut him off. "That Hokage-sama immediately and tell him what happened and that his child is here," he ordered his brother, who left straight to the Hokage's house. "Arrest this man now and make sure he can't escape," he ordered, and 2 more branch members took the intruder away. As Ashi arrived at the Hokage's residence and rang the doorbell a few times. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. "What?" Both Kushina and Minato shouted in their night clothes and bed hair. Hisashi had to struggle not to look at Kushina's revealing nightgown that was transparent and showed her developed breasts and curves. "Hisashi, you better have a good reason for waking us up at this late hour or else." She growled, keeping the man focused. "Yes, Kushina-sama. There's been an incident at the Hyuga compound and your son was involved." Both parents looked confused for a moment before Kushina ran up the stairs and slammed open all the children's rooms, waking them up, but stopped cold when she got to the last one. "Naruto's gone," she screamed. Both Minato and Kushina left, but not before calling Anbu to look after their children. Kushina arrived at the Hyuga compound to see her son being cared over by Hitomi and a sleeping Hinata that clung to him like a lifeline. She noticed the bandages wrapped around him making him almost look like a mummy. In a rage, Kushina charged up to her son. "Hey Kachan," Naruto stated, before his angry Kachan slapped him across the face. "What were you thinking sneaking out?" she cried, tears staining her face. She was terrified when she found him missing, even more so when she saw him banged up like he was in a battle. Both Hitomi and Hinata, who woke up, watched horrified as Naruto cried, rubbing his red cheek. He had never been hit by his Kachan before. "Boo but K Kachan I. No, buts. Get back to the house this instant," she shouted, trying to grab him and take him where she can keep him safe. Naruto recoiled, scared after he was hit. He leaned into Hinata who was comforting him. Kushina was about to pry Naruto away when, "Kushina. I think it would be best if Naruto stays tonight." Hitomi tried to calm down the emotional mother. But she stammered, still crying. "No buts. You're too emotional right now and Naruto's fine with us, come back tomorrow and we'll explain what happened." Kushina was about to argue when sniffling reached her ears. Sniff, sniff. Looking behind Hitomi, she saw a shivering Naruto crying into Hinata's shoulder. The pit in her stomach sank as the realization hit her like lead as she hit her own son, her pride and joy. Covering her mouth in horror, more tears started to fall because of what she did. "And Naruto-chan, I'm SOS sorry." She tried to reach for him, but Naruto shuffled closer to Hinata in fear. Hitomi put her hand on her friend's shoulder. Kushina was destroyed after seeing her own son so fearful of her. Giving her friend a pained glance, Hitomi just shook her head no, already knowing what Kushina was going to ask. Kushina left the room, not another word said, not knowing how to fix things, and was afraid of what tomorrow would bring. "Naru-chan, please forgive me," she silently pleaded, tears falling as she made her way back home. Minato glared at the ambassador of Kumo, he was pissed. This man almost killed his son and tried to kidnap an innocent child. Take him to Ibiki and Inoichi. Tell them to get every last drop of information from him in the most painful way possible. He growled out, leaving the room in silence. But he forgot one important fact: how did his son take out a Jonin? Beyond aim Hokage never once questioning what actually happened that night. After Kushina's outburst, Naruto cried for a while clinging to Hinata, who was comforting him the whole time. Eventually the two children went to bed together. "Ah-chan, I'm sorry I just wanted to give Hinata-chan her present." The young boy was upset, thinking that his Ka-chan may hate him now. He was afraid to lose her. "Naruto-kun." Hinata's sweet voice broke him out of his thoughts. His blue eyes, red from crying, looked into Hinata's lavender orbs. "You did nothing wrong. Kushina-san was just worried for you, I'm sure it will all be right," she told him, calming the boy down a little. And she leaned closer, causing the boy to blush as he felt something wonderfully soft touch his cheek and causing tingling sensation. Thank you for saving me." She blushed, having just kissed the boy she really liked on the cheek. Her blonde savior was blushing up a storm, never having anyone but his Ka-chan and a few times his Amato kiss him on the cheek. The boy gulped, one hand touching his still tingling cheek. "Then no problem Hinata-chan. I'll always protect you." He stuttered out embarrassed. He felt his heart racing suddenly as Hinata gave him a heartfelt smile of thanks. "What's happening, what's this strange feeling?" he thought, feeling such a new sensation for the first time. Watching as Hinata closed her eyes, he couldn't help but admire how beautiful she was. Her face was round, her smooth skin glowed a pale silver, like starlight, the moonlight hit her showing all her feminine features. Her silky midnight blue hair did the same, and his eyes must have been deceiving him because he could have sworn he saw lavender sparkles coming from it. Thump. 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 He tried to control his eccentric heart, but it just beats faster and faster as he gazed at the girl's ethereal beauty before him. "Hinata-chan, you're so beautiful." He gazed at her in admiration until he remembered the original reason he came to her tonight. "Stupid. You still need to give her present." As his inner voice reminded him, his hand was making its way into his pocket where a small lavender box was kept. "Hinata-chan, you still awake?" he asked shyly with a bit of worry. "Why yeah, I'm awake," Hinata mumbled, half asleep. "Well, I still haven't given you your present yet," he told her. Hinata's eyes opened as Naruto pulled out a small lavender box. Looking at it, Hinata's eyes went to Naruto-kun, who nodded silently, telling her to take it. Hinata took the small box, touched it. The boy she only knew for about a month bought her a present. Even more so when she realized it was the original reason he came out tonight. Opening the box, her mouth flew open, gasping in surprise at what she saw. It was a wonderful necklace that was probably one of the most beautiful things she saw. "Happy birthday Hinata-chan." He smiled as the girl stared in shock at the present. It was spherical with a slight oval shape, a small piece of string completing it. But the necklace was made out of gemstones with a red ruby cut into the Uzumaki spiral. But that wasn't the most surprising thing about it, because on the front along with the ruby was a crescent moon made of purple sapphire. It was cut perfectly so it fitted with the ruby Uzumaki spiral. Picking it up to examine more clearly, she notices that the main part of the necklace was thicker than she thought. Turning the necklace around, there was a sun made of orange topaz. Like the moon on the front, it was cut so it fit perfectly into the center of the ruby, but in the center, a contrast of the orange was the bright red of another ruby stone, cut into the shape of the Hyuga flame. Then Naruto-kun, it's beautiful. She stuttered in astonishment. The necklace in front of her would have Okami-sama. This must have cost a fortune. Why you didn't need to spend that much on. She was cut off by Naruto. Don't worry, I got a lot of money for my birthday, since Koch-an and Toussaint couldn't buy me anything special, since I wasn't joining in on the training. He told her smiling, which made it worse for the girl. As heir to the noble Hyuga clan, she could tell this was one of the most expensive things she's ever seen, and it would have had to be custom bought to get it cut like this. One part of her was delighted over the fact her Naruto-kun spent so much for her. The other part, however, couldn't help but feel incredibly guilty that he spent so much of his money on her. Then Naruto-kun, I don't. She was once more cut off. Hinata-chan, that is a present from me to you. If you don't accept it, then it would have been such a waste since I had it made with you in mind. If you really want to thank me for it, then wear it and show me how beautiful it looks on you. He smiled, causing the girl to blush at what he was implying. She handed Naruto the necklace and he was about to protest but was cut off. Will you put it on me, Naruto-kun? The boy took the offered necklace, nodding dumbly. Making his way behind the girl's neck, he clicked the necklace into place. Both children were blushing madly as their faces almost touched, an inch closer, and they would have shared their first kiss together. Backing away, Naruto put his hand over his heart that was beating a million times faster than before. Picking up the necklace once more from around her neck, Hinata smiled even more with a pink blush. It warmed the boy's heart seeing her so happy. Deciding to be brave, Hinata shouted, "I love it," while jumping into Naruto's arms. The boy was blushing madly as he hugged Hinata back, smelling her lavender scent as he resisted the urge to bury his face into her hair. Noticing after a few minutes Hinata didn't move, he looked down to see her asleep, smiling blissfully. Smiling peacefully himself, he got comfortable with the blue-haired beauty in his arms. As the boy drifted off to sleep, Hinata's smile got wider as she snuggled into her Naruto-kun, more delighted that her plan worked. In a black void, a rainbow-colored orb glowed behind a cage with seal on it. It just floated there with what looked like water below reflected back the orb's light. The orb was still before a spark of yellow electricity circled around the orb. Chapter 4. A failed promise. 10 months later, it's been almost a year since Hinata's attempted kidnapping by Kumo and Naruto's rescue of her. Thanks to the Kumo nin being taken alive, Konoha Interrogation Department was able to get all of Kumo's plans. The Yondaime Hokage was furious when he found that along with kidnapping the Hyuga heiress, his youngest son and daughter were both targets if the opportunity arose. Minato was thanking his lucky stars. He listened to his sensei and made extra care to listen to his sensei's words, more often a decision that will cause more problems than it will solve. Kumo tried to plead that they had nothing to do with it, but after showing evidence Konoha found after ambushing the Kumo extraction team near the borders of the Land of Fire, they could not weasel out of it. With this evidence and news of how Kumo's ninja was captured by a child, the village suffered a humiliating defeat. Once news reached the daimyo of the Land of Lighting, he forced the village of Kumo to pay reparations to Konoha, as well as cut the village's budget, weakening their strength. It was that decision that prevented the Yondaime Hokage from going to war, who was convinced by the council and his sensei to accept the money to aid in the further recovery of their village after Kyuubi's attack 4 years prior. Rumors quickly spread about the son of the Hokage saving the Hyuga heiress. However, because of his status as Jinchuriki, it became widely known that it was the youngest son and not the eldest, causing the villagers' treatment of Menma to improve drastically, even going as far believing he would become Hokage like his Toussaint one day. To the shy little boy who dreamed of becoming Hokage, this was a big confidence boost. However, not all of the aftermath of what is now known as the Hyuga affair was good. Due to Kushina's outburst on the night the relationship between her and her eldest suffered. Naruto was weary of Kushina the months after, and though he eventually forgives her, there has been a strain on their relationship ever since. While a wedge was put between mother and son, the relationship between Hinata and Naruto only grew closer, much to Menma's envy, who trained harder, hoping to surpass his brother and earn the Hyuga heiress' attention. It was the eve before the triplets' 4th birthday, and Kushina was preparing for the celebration tomorrow with a big smile. Like she promised last year, Naruto was going to start training, and she planned to work extra hard with the boy so he can catch up to his siblings and repair the rift that formed between her and her son. The triplets were currently playing outside with Hinata. Since it was their birthday tomorrow, Menma and Akami were given the day off. It was the first time in ages that all the siblings and Hinata got together. Menma and Akami were a bit disappointed since they couldn't play ninja games because Naruto had yet to start his training, but they were just happy they could play with their Ani-san like old times. Hinata didn't mind much since she was used to playing non-ninja games with her Naruto-kun despite having started her own training her last birthday. But because of her attempted kidnapping, her training was increased to ensure that she could defend herself if Kumo tried anything again. This left the only child who didn't start his training yet to be very lonely, but the thought of him being able to train together with his precious siblings kept him going and smiling, and tomorrow, he was finally going to be able to play with them on equal footing. At this time, a white-haired man appeared in a cloud of smoke in between Menma and Akami, jumping in surprise as they whirled around to face who it is, Naruto quickly taking a stance in front of Hinata in case it was Kumo. Hinata blushed at Naruto's protectiveness of her and took this opportunity to cling to Naruto despite not being that afraid. When the smoke dispersed, both Menma and Akami shouted, "Jiraiya-sensei." The white-haired sensei smiled at the two as they looked at him with big smiles. "What's up, you little brats, did you miss me?" he asked, smiling broadly. "Nope." Both Akami and Menma said bluntly. Their sensei fell to his knees as he pretended to cry. "I'm hurt, how could you treat your own godfather like that?" His crying didn't last very long until the two children broke out in laughter. "Ha ha ha, don't worry, Jiraiya-sensei." Akami started. "We really did miss you." Menma stuttered, causing the sage to frown. While the boy's confidence had skyrocketed the past year, he still hadn't managed to completely get rid of his lack of it. "Well, of course you did, after all, I am the greatest godfather on earth," he exclaimed, pointing two thumbs to himself, a goofy grin on his face that only made the two laugh. Naruto and Hinata watched the trio due to their own reasons. Naruto never really got along with the sage, he always seemed to focus more on his sibling than him even before they started training. Hinata really didn't care and had yet to let go of Naruto. Jiraiya may have been one of the greatest ninja alive, but her Aka-chan called him a giant pervert. She had no idea what that means, but the anger and disgust she said it with was enough to wipe away any respect she had for his title. Once the trio finished laughing, Akami finally asked the question everyone wanted to know. "So Jiraiya-san, why are you here?" "I'm glad you asked," he stated, pulling the great big scroll on his back and presenting it before them. "I've talked to your two-san and we agreed to let you sign the Toad contract." Both them looked at the scroll with sparkles in their eyes, even Naruto looked at the scroll in interest. The triplets grew up hearing stories about their two-san and Aji-san exploits with the mighty summons. They longed for the day they too could become Toad summoners and fight side by side with the mighty beasts. Opening the scroll, Jiraiya got ready for the newest Toad summoners to sign. "Now write your names in blood in one of the empty spaces and then fingerprints to finish the contract." Both of the children bit their thumbs and quickly carried out the sage's instructions. Naruto started walking over too, but when he got there the sage pulled up the scroll. "Great, once we start back up with training, I'll teach you how to summon your first Toad K." The sage ruffled by Menma's and Akami hair. "Happy birthday, you two." Naruto could only watch with slight shock, and Hinata glared at the sage for completely ignoring her Naruto-kun. As Menma and Akami started talking about the toads they were going to summon, Naruto approached his godfather. "Jiraiya-sensei, what about me?" "Who?" The sage huffed, forgetting about the oldest sibling. "Aren't I going to be allowed to sign the contract too?" the little boy asked with hope, only to have his dreams crushed. "Sorry boy, but you're not ready for something like this yet, maybe once you've trained a bit, but not until then." Naruto only frowned, his eyes looking downcast at the ground. He quickly put on a fake smile and tried to think more positive thoughts. His siblings didn't notice, too engrossed in their own talks, but Hinata did and hated seeing her Naruto-kun excluded out. "Well then, what are you going to teach me?" he asked, excitement in his voice at the thought of finally starting his ninja training. "Who?" the sage said confusingly, having no idea what the boy meant until he clarified. "I mean, I'm going to start training soon too, aren't I? What I'm going to learn? Will it be fireballs or clones or the cool flashing jutsu you used just now?" Naruto asked excitedly, his early disappointment gone as he imaged himself doing all the cool things he's seen and heard ninja do. "Crap, I totally forgot about him." Minato promised he'll start training the boy this year, but Menma and Akami needed much more if the prophecy is to succeed. Looking at the excited boy, he didn't know what to tell him and just ruffled the boy's head like he did with the other two. "We'll see." The boy was ecstatic. He's seen his godfather do this to his siblings all the time, but he never remembered him doing it to him. The boy thought his godfather was finally acknowledging him and couldn't wait to join him and his sibling for their next training session. But he was sadly wrong on that thought because the sage walked away. "We can't take the boy on for training too. I'll speak to Minato and sort it. We can't have it compromising the prophecy." Naruto went back to Hinata, who was worried something just felt off between Naruto-kun's talk with the Sannin. "Hinata-chan." her mother called, coming to pick her up. Hearing this, Hinata quickly looking to the entrance of Namika's Uzumaki household, seeing her smiling mother. Menma quickly turned to say goodbye to Hinata. Bye. Hi, his goodbye was muffled though, as Naruto beat him to it. Bye Hinata-chan, I'll see you tomorrow. Naruto smiled at his best friend, who blushes at his attention. In a moment of bravery, Hinata hugged her Naruto-kun, her face turning bright red as she wished him a happy birthday. Bye Naruto-kun and happy birthday. This shocked Menma, making jealous as he watched Hinata-chan hug his Ani-san. This didn't go unnoticed by Jiraiya either. Well, isn't this interesting, the kid's got himself a childhood crush. The sage was delighted at this revelation, thinking he finally found a way to solve the kid's confidence problems. Hinata pulled away, blushing heavily, unable to meet Naruto's eyes, who was blushing himself, not expecting the sudden display of affection from the usually reserved Hyuga. Sure, it happened before, but it was usually him that did it, and when Hinata was upset and not the other way around. Hinata fingered the necklace Naruto gave her last year, remembering all that happened that night. I'll give you your birthday present tomorrow Naruto-kun. Naruto smiled brightly, he couldn't wait to see what she got him. Turning to Naruto's sibling. Bye Menma, Akami, see you tomorrow. Bye Hinata. Akami called, waving her hand. Menma looked up at hearing his Wani-chan shout goodbye. Bye Hinata-chan. He said quietly and half-heartedly, but she still heard and smiled at the boy, causing him to blush. However, his blush disappeared when Hinata sent a loving look to his Ani before running off to her mother. Akami and Naruto went to the gate waving their friend goodbye until she was out of sight. Leaving Menma to sulk on his own. You know, if you really want her attention you need to grow stronger and take the intuitive. Looking to his right, he saw that the words of wisdom came from his godfather. Would Hinata-chan really notice me if became stronger? He asked, the hope in his voice obvious. Of course, take it from me. I've been with hundreds of ladies and they love it when a big strong man takes charge. Believe me, just get stronger and the little Hyuga will be all yours. The sage encouraged, hoping his plan would work. Menma's eyes sparkled as he thought of Hinata-chan clinging to him and not his Ani, and he blushed at the thought of her hugging him. I'll do it. I'll train harder and become stronger for Hinata-chan. He shouted in a burst of confidence. But a boy, and don't worry, I'll help you all the way. Jiraiya ruffled the boy's head before going in. Menma glared at remembering the hug Hinata gave, and he felt a strong sense of anger towards his beloved Ani-san. I won't lose Ani-san, not anymore, and defiantly not Hinata-chan. But that promise made Menma went to the back to get some training in before dinner. Kushina was getting into bed after tucking in her triplets. She had an incredible bright smile after hearing Naruto talk excitedly about training while she tucked him in. So, Minato, what are we going to start Naruto on? Kushina asked her husband. Causing the man next to her to look her way and dreading the conversation that was to come. I was thinking chakra control and then some sealing. Menma and Akami haven't been able to pick it up, so maybe Naruto will. Kushina was excited to start teaching her eldest. Sure, she loved teaching her other children, but Jiraiya and Minato always seemed to be overbearing during training. She was hoping while they took care of Menma and Akami training, she would be left alone to train with Naruto and get him up to speed. As Kushina excitedly went on, Minato finally managed to force the words he was dreading to say. Actually, Kushina-chan, I think it would be best if we hold off training Naruto-kun for now. He said quickly, not stopping only to grimace at the face his wife gave. Kushina had a look of hurt and confusion at her husband's response. They already excluded Naruto for a whole year and promised to make it up to him this year. Minato? What do you mean by that? We already promised we'll start this year, we can't break it. Kushina almost shouted, starting to lose her temper, but refrained because the kids were sleeping. Now listen to me, Kushina-chan, it's just that Menma and Akami aren't as far as we hoped. We didn't even start with the Kyuubi chakra yet. He tried pleading his case. Which was why we excluded Naruto to train them to better control their powers in the first place. He went on, not liking the frown and disappointing look his wife gave him. Be that as it may, we can't just break our promise. I'll train him myself if I have to. Kushina told her husband determinedly. We can't do that, Kushina, your chains are the only surefire way to ensure they don't lose control. Me and Jiraiya-sensei can use seals, but we need to get close to do it, and who knows what could happen in the meantime. Kushina would admit he had a good point. Her ability to repress chakra was the key reason she was chosen as a Jinchuriki, and her chains made it easy to keep them under control. But still, that's no reason to not let him join in. Minato could only frown at his wife, hoping that the conversation would end quickly without becoming a full-blown fight. But you know how Naruto is. Remember that incident with Kumo last year. This caused Kushina to halt as a past fear showed up. How could she forget waking up to find Naruto was missing was one of the scariest moments of her life. And when she found him injured after almost being killed, her heart stopped. What do you think Naruto would do if Menma or Akami were to lose control? Minato told her, already knowing the answer. It didn't take long for Kushina to work out what, after all, Naruto was always the ideal big brother. He would try and protect them even if it meant getting hurt. Her husband's words echoed, causing her to imagine Naruto taking on an out-of-control Menma and Akami, only to be fatally injured. "No," she whispered, almost crying in fear for her boy. "Look, you and I don't want to do this, but Naruto is too reckless. He gets into fights all the time, and if we train him now, he'll just put himself in more dangerous situations." Kushina was practically crying. She could still remember all the parents that came to complain about Naruto for beating up their children. Seeing his distressed wife, he put his arm over her shoulder, hugging her. "Once Menma and Akami have gotten used to the fox's chakra and we don't need to worry about them losing control all of a sudden, then Naruto can join, and by then he'll be much more mature than he is now. You know how hard it is to keep control of the Kyuubi at first. The children need to build up a resistance to its influence before we can safely train them with Naruto." Minato's words seemed to finally gotten through to his wife, who only nodded in his embrace. "Don't worry, once Naruto started at the academy, he'll get the basics down there and we can start teaching him more advanced stuff. By then Menma and Akami are sure to be where we want them to be." Kushina could only silently cry. She hated the thought of leaving her son alone, but her husband's words made sense. They would just have to tell Naruto he'll have to wait a little longer. Unfortunately for the two, a young boy with bright blonde hair, blue eyes and whiskered marked cheeks heard everything. He got up to go to the bathroom and brush his teeth, forgetting to do it while he was telling his Kachan about all the things he wanted to learn when he started training. But sadly, that wasn't the case. He heard everything. "It's just for another year, it's Yamato and Itato can be safe," he whispered, but he couldn't stop a silent tear that fall as he made his way back up to his room. If it was for his family, would do anything. He was the oldest, so he would make sure his siblings are safe no matter what. The next day, the Hokage's family was once more holding a large celebration for their triplets' birthday. There were a few more people this year, most of them here for Menma and Akami. All except one. Naruto was waiting in the corner watching while his sibling tried to perform the summoning jutsu. When Hinata and her family arrived, she immediately went to Naruto, spotting his bright yellow hair straight away, and went to give him his present. "Naruto-kun," she practically sang. Naruto put up a fake smile, trying his best not to show his disappointment. "Hey, Hinata-chan." Hinata felt that there was something off with Naruto's smile and presented him with his present, which was really big. It might have been the biggest present there. Naruto looked at the surprisingly huge gift Hinata presented with a blush. Embarrassed, having never really received such a big present before, he felt a smile come to his lips as he accepted it and began opening it. "I hope you like it." Like was an understatement. He practically loved her. Hinata-chan outdid herself. There wasn't just one present but several. There was a custom-made ninja pouch and shuriken holder, along with custom-made shuriken and kunai. These weren't the practice tools his siblings got, but real ones that looked like they were made of silver. There were also 3 scrolls for learning the most basic academy jutsu, the Bushin, Kawarimi and Henge no Jutsu. Finally, there were 2 books, one about chakra theory and the other about trap making with a beginner starting kit. I thought that with this you'll be able to catch up to you siblings in no time, and now that you're starting your training." She blushed, fidgeting with her fingers. The delight he felt went away and a frown appeared on his face at remembering the fact he won't really be able to use them. "Naruto-kun, is something wrong?" Hinata asked, worriedly, scared that he didn't like the present she brought for him. "No, it's not that, it's just I won't be able to use them." His voice was small as he looked sorrowful at what was the best present of his life. "What do you mean?" Hinata couldn't understand why he wouldn't be able to use them. "I'm not starting my training this year." He sighed, the thought hurting him after remembering his parents' words last night. Why not?" the shy Hyuga almost shouted. She knew just how much he was looking forward to this. "Itato and Yamato aren't where Kachan and Tusen want them to be yet, so my training's on hold for another year," he told her sadly, watching her get angrier at those words. "Well, you can train with me then." The offer intrigued him and made him happy, but he couldn't really say yes. "I doubt your Tusen and clan would allow it." After attempts to join Hinata's training sessions, he learned firsthand that he wouldn't be allowed to just join. "I don't care, I'll train you myself if I have to, and then when your parent finally do train you, you can show them all your hard work," Hinata said with confidence, not going to let Naruto be left out anymore. She couldn't do much this past year with her own training and knew how hard it was for Naruto being left alone while everyone trained but him. She even saw him trying to train on his own but having no idea where to start. Naruto managed to crack a smile. It was still smaller than usual, but it was an honest one. Bringing the girl into a hug, he whispered in her ear. "Thank you." Feeling the heat going to her face and desperately trying not to faint, Hinata just hugged Naruto back. "Anytime, Naruto-kun." Those words made Naruto want to cry. Hinata was just an amazing friend and he loved her for it. He watched his daughter go over to the eldest son of the Hokage. Personally, he wished she took a liking to the youngest son. Knowing that the Kyuubi chakra along with the Uzumaki heritage could have vast potential. It also didn't help that the children were treated as heroes for saving the village from the fox. His wife, however, didn't care about the future or politics, and all that mattered to her was that her daughter was happy. She approved of the girl's choice in boys even at this age. It was plain as day to see that Naruto would become a fine young man. Menma wasn't happy as he saw Hinata run over to his Ani and then ended up hugging her again. He was enraged with jealousy, and as he did the hand signs for summoning jutsu tickle of red chakra burst as he slammed his hand down. The Fuinjutsu of the Toad clan spread out from the palm of his hand. Everyone watched, surprised as a cloud of smoke appeared. As it cleared, a little green toad that was more of a cross between a tadpole and toad appeared. Everyone clapped as Menma's successes in the summoning jutsu for the very first time. "Aw, come on, how you do that?" Akami pouted as she tried to do the jutsu, but failed each time. Jiraiya and Minato only smiled at the boy's progress. Delighted with his summoning, he scooped up his toad tadpole thingy and ran off to show Hinata and his Ani-san. "Hinata-chan, Ani-san, look, I summoned a toad." The boy showed off his toad excitedly. Both of them looked at said toad, realizing it wasn't a toad yet, but didn't say anything. "Just wait, I know it's small, but I'm going to summon big ones like Tusan once we start training," he said excitedly, happy to have gotten it down first. His Ani-san and Wani-chan always beat him, but not this time he came out on top. "Live it up, Atauto, I'll catch up and summon a toad twice as big." Akami playfully challenged, happy for her Atauto success even if she was a little jealous. "Then I'll just summon one twice as big as yours by then." Menma challenged back. Seeing his siblings fight over jutsu hurt, especially one he wanted so badly to learn. Naruto began running off his sibling, hardly noticing, but Hinata did, and she glared at the siblings. When Menma and Akami looked back to see their Ani missing, they asked, "Where did Ani go?" She wanted to shout at them for being so inconsiderate of Naruto's feelings, but knew that wouldn't make Naruto any happier. So, she just ignored them, going to find her Naruto-kun. This caused Menma to feel a bit hurt, but once he remembered that Hinata-chan actually paid attention to him when he showed her the toad, it strengthened his resolve. "Just wait, Hinata-chan, I'm going to get stronger and stronger for you." As Naruto ran, he ended up bumping into his Ka-chan. "Naruto, watch where you going," she scolded, but when he just ran past without so much as an apology, she got a bit angry. "Naruto," she growled, the boy stopping at his Ka-chan's warning tone. "What do we say when we bump into someone?" she asked, wanting an apology. It was basic manners to apologize when you bump into someone. Naruto's fist clenched, slowly turning, he asked. "Ka-chan, when am I going to start training?" A wave of guilt overcame Kushina and she was left too shocked to say anything. Having no idea that Naruto overheard her and Minato last night. Using this opportunity, Naruto ran to his room and away from his Ka-chan, who didn't have the heart to chase after him. Naruto laid on his bed, everything was looking up. His godfather and Ka-chan were acknowledging him and he was so happy to be with his sibling again. But in the end, it didn't happen and he was excluded from his family for another year. Naruto didn't hear the door open as Hinata slipped in, seeing Naruto lying on the bed as he sulked. Taking a seat next to him, she lovingly stroked his back and hair as the boy began crying. It tore her heart seeing him like this, no matter what the reason. Couldn't his family see they were hurting him? "Don't worry, Naruto-kun, I'm here." Hinata lied down, hugging Naruto's head to chest. He hugged her back until he fell asleep. When Hitomi went looking for her daughter and saw them lying together on the bed, she smiled and asked Kushina if it was okay for Hinata to stay. She agreed, knowing how much her children loved Hinata, having no idea that Hinata had fallen asleep in Naruto's room. In the black void behind its cage, the rainbow orb had grown bigger. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr an egg. DRRRRRRRRRRRR. The orb growled again, but quitter as a pulse of power came off it. The cage around it tried stopping it, but the pulse of power almost slipped through with no challenge, only the tiniest bit of energy not making it past the seal. In the real world, Naruto glowed in a rainbow aura for a few seconds, and as suddenly as it appeared it disappeared, sinking within the boy. Chapter 5. A terrible first day. Author's note: the both guests that flamed my story. 1. I will thank the one who was at least a bit respectful in his review, but I challenge his view of me butchering Kushina's and Minato's personalities and contradicting everything we know from canon. Considering that both of them didn't have the greatest amount of screen time, I think I did pretty well with their personalities from what the canon gave us. Kushina was shown to be hot-headed and react violently when upset. She was also shown to be emotional at times, but that could be chalked up to her being pregnant at the time. In my fic, she loves Naruto dearly, but because of that, she gets emotional and overreacts at times. I tried to make it so she isn't happy about him being left out, but Minato acted like the voice of reason and logically explained using Kushina's own feelings on Naruto's safety to get her to agree. As for Minato, he was a Hokage that sealed a demon in his own children. There is no doubt he loves Naruto, but in his mind, everything he does is for the greater good and his duty is Hokage. Also, according to the prophecy, he is at risk of losing his family as well as the world. So, a part of him is desperate to stop it, even if his family hates him for it in the end. It doesn't help that his sensei is encouraging him, helping solidify the idea that it is all for the greater good. Even if you say it's not a flame, it sounds like it is, it's fanfic, so you can't expect the personalities to be 100%, but I am trying. It just seemed to me you are disregarding some of the key points and reason I put in to explain Minato's and Kushina's actions. As for the rest of your review about what happened to all the original writers on fanfic. First, I am doing this for fun, and I am not a pro writer and will properly never be. Second, almost no idea out there is actually original and are always based off something else. Fanfiction as a whole personifies this. To the other guest who simply called my work trash, tell that to all the reviewers who like the story so far. If you're going to hate, at least say why and use an account, and then your reviews would actually mean something. Akami was humming a tune. It was early morning as she helped prepare breakfast with her Kachan. The now 5-year-old girl was delighted because today was the day her and her brothers were going to start going to the academy together. I can't wait for me and Ani-san and Itato to begin the academy and finally be together again. She didn't understand why her parents didn't let her Ani-san start training with them like they had promised, and she hated it. She missed the days when the three of them would be close and inseparable from each other. But once Menma and I started training, those days just faded away. Her smile quickly turned into a frown at the recollection of the growing distance between her Ani-san. While they trained, their Ani-san just seemed to fade out. The times we spent together just keeps becoming less and less. Hurry up and join us, Ani, we miss you, I miss you. Looking to her Kachan, who was humming the same tune she was humming until a few minutes ago. Her crimson hair was tied up in ponytail just like her own, and she had a glowing smile as she prepared food for her family. As the sun hit her mother, she couldn't help but admire how beautiful she was, hoping that one day she would be just as beautiful. Kushina, noticing her only daughter looking at her, turned her bright smile and violent eyes, showering her little girl with love. What's wrong, daughter? Blushing at her Kachan, Akami shyly looked away. Her cheeks were almost as red as her hair. Kachan, why hasn't Ani-san started training with us yet? Her voice sweet and childlike, her blue eyes sparkling in innocence and cheeks slight puffed. Her daughter was adorable, and any other day Kushina would squeal and give her daughter a big hug. But despite it being an innocent question from her daughter, it only brought out a feeling of guilt from Kushina. Her conversation with Minato echoed in her mind. She didn't like it one bit that her eldest had to be left out. But her worrying for his safety and her husband's reasoning won out over her motherly instincts. As her only daughter looked at her innocently, all she could do was tell her. He's just not ready. Her voice broke, showing that she was unsure on what she was saying. This only confused the young girl who was cutely tilting her head. Seeing her daughter's obvious confusion, she leaned down to her height, patting her on the head soothingly and telling her. Don't worry. He'll join you soon. Once he's gone to the academy, I'm sure Nari-chan will be ready, and then you can all train together. This brought a smile to the little girl's face, causing her Kachan to give just as big smile. Now go and wake your Itato and Ani-san, breakfast's almost ready. Akami's blue eyes sparkled. Okay, Kachan. Running off in a happy mood thanks to the news that her Ani-san will be with them again. Kushina could only smile at her daughter's happiness at the thought of her Ani-san joining them in training. Turning to finish dishing up breakfast, she could only hope that her words were true and her eldest would join this year. Nari-chan will join in this year for sure, Databane. As Akami ran off to wake her brothers, she couldn't keep the excitement she felt. Finally. Now that we're all attending the academy, we can all be together and soon Naruto Ani-san will start training with us too. Quickly opening the door to her Itato's room, she ran to the bed where her Itato was sleeping soundly. Smiling at how peaceful he looked, she gently put her hand on him. She shook him awake. Come Itato, it's time for breakfast. Grumbling Menma replied with. Okay Wani-chan. He got up and wiped the sleep from his eyes. His Wani-chan was already running to their Ani-san's room. Entering she shouted. Wake up Ani-san. Her voice echoing through the room, yet her Ani didn't budge one bit. Still snoring soundly, his sheets thrown all over the place from all the twisting and turning as he did during the night. Getting mad, she glared at her Ani and marched up to his bed, shaking him vigorously. Wake up Ani or we'll be late to the academy. When Naruto's response was him turning away in his sleep still, she knew she had no choice. Taking a deep breath, she shouted at the top of her lungs. Raymond. Before she knew it, something sped past her, causing her to spin around from the force generated as it passed her. When she finally stopped, her hair was all messy. Blinking in surprise, she saw that her Ani was no longer in bed. Des Ani-san, couldn't you have at least made your bed? Leaning over she grabbed the sheets making her Ani-san's bed for him. What would you do without me Ani-san? Akami was walking in the dining room after having finished fixing her Ani-san's bed. Ani-san, couldn't you have made your bed before speeding off? She grumbled, her right hand patting her hair back down after her Ani messed it up. Naruto only glared at Izumoto, who promptly returned it with her own. You lied, there's no ramen here. He told her, his voice lanced with annoyance. Well, it was the only way to get you up. Reaching her hand to the back of her head, she lightly pulled at her ponytail, flattening the lost strands back down. Besides, you messed up my hair, so we're even. Sticking her tongue out at him, she made her way to her own seat. I just don't understand your obsession with ramen. Naruto looked shocked at this statement. Hey. You like ramen as much as any of us do. He said, standing up and pointing an accusing finger at her. That was when I was a kid and you and Kachan made us have it every day. Despite what she was saying, ramen was still one of her top favorite foods, but she was more like her Tusen than her Kachan and knew the importance of eating other foods. Yet she still savored the deliciousness of ramen when it came up. But I'm never going to let them know that, I'll never live it down. Turning her head the other way, her ponytail swinging along, she scoffed. Ramen's not that great. Blasphemy. This shout didn't come from her Ani-san, but from her ramen-obsessive Kachan. Ramen is the food of the gods. No Uzumaki has disliked it and none ever will on my watch. Her Kachan stated with her finger raised, her Ani agreeing with her as he raised his own finger. Akami looked at her Shayataudo, hoping he at least retained his sanity. But sadly, she was mistaken, as even her Shayataudo was giving her a glare of disappointment along with a nod of agreement at his Kachan's words. Sighing, she thought. Why did I have to be born into a family of ramen addicts? Despite the slight grief she felt at the thought, she couldn't help the small smile that showed on her face. It's good to have you back, Ani. She couldn't remember the last time they all ate and joked together like this. Even her Ani and Kachan were getting along better since forever. The only thing that's disappointing her was the empty chair of her Tusan, who had to leave to do work before the academy opening ceremony. Once they all finished getting all ready to leave, the family entered standard Namikaze Uzumaki formation, as both Akami and Menma took hold of one of their Kachan's hand, each with Naruto taking point. After a boring speech given by his Tusan and many slaps by his Izumoto to keep him awake, the opening speech ended and they got to the fun part. Exhibition matches. In order to measure academy entries' abilities, they would fight randomly against a fellow candidate. This allowed instructors to get a peek at their future students and see what level they were at. However, one match they didn't expect was two of the Hokage's children going at it. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze vs Akami Uzumaki Namikaze. The instructor shouted. Both children looked at one another, slightly worried, having never thought they would end up fighting over anything but ramen before today. Both children made their way to the ring. While they did so, their Tusan had his own private thoughts on the match. It's sad, but Naruto's going to lose. He just doesn't have the training Akami does. Akami was unfortunately having the same thoughts, knowing her Ani-san had no training like she did. This is bad, Ani won't stand a chance. I could let him win, but he'll know and Kachan and Tusan will get mad. Naruto gazed at the crowd to where his best friend and her family was watching. Hinata was happily cheering for him, her excitement for the match overpowering her shyness, making Menma jealous. Her mother Hitomi, now visibly pregnant with her second child, smiled. I can finally show the results of my training over the past year. He trained with both Hinata and Hitomi, and though he couldn't join his friend's training sessions with her Otu-san, Hitomi was more than willing to take the time to train him instead during those times. Ani-san, please give up. I don't want to hurt you. His sorrowful Izumoto's voice reached his ears, pleading him to give up. Naruto just stared at her with a determination in his eyes. Sorry Izumoto, but I'm not the one who's going to get hurt. Taking his fighting stance, he got ready. His right foot went backwards, turning slightly, his body also turning sideward and hands raised and slide open. It was a basic stance, but one that served him well when fought off Hinata's bullies. Looking at her Ani worryingly, she resolved to finish this quickly without hurting or embarrassing him too much. Sorry Ani, I'll try and end it quickly. Frowning at her words that hurt for her to say, but she trained for 2 years straight with her Tusan, Kachan and Jai-san. Taking her own stance, which was a lower level version of her Tusan's Hakidori hummingbird style. In her mind, there was no way her Ani could stand up to her. The proctor shouted to start. Begin. Rushing her Ani, Akami sped to Naruto, throwing a roundhouse kick, surprising him at the sheer speed she moved at. Despite the surprise, Naruto's arms were able to poorly block it, but he still felt some pain from the force of blow, hitting his awkward guard. She was expecting him to be sent flying like her Itaudo usually did, though he did improve when he started putting chakra to his feet. However, she was dead wrong as her Ani turned, his hips throwing his fist forward with slight spin to it and putting his weight behind it as he aimed a punch at her face. Her reflexes kicked in and quickly flipping back, she narrowly avoided the blow, eyes widening in surprise at the wind she felt from the punch. Now in mid-flip, one of her legs caught her Ani's chin before finishing landing a few meters away. But Naruto wasn't even fazed by her blow, though he felt the pain. To the girl's eyes he looked completely fine. He withstood her kicks by pure muscle strength, something not even Naruto could do. Smacking his mouth at feeling the pain from her kick to his chin and shaking his arms, it distracted him from the pain and numbness he felt as he quickly charged at Minato. Propelling off his back foot, Naruto quickly covered the gap between them. Though fast for his age and any other academy entry, besides his siblings and Hinata, to Akami who was used to her sparring partners using chakra to move faster, her Ani might as well have been moving in slow motion. Throwing a roundhouse kick of his own, Minato easily ducked under it, punching him in the face and sending him flying back a few meters. Naruto was able to recover his footing quickly due to years of beating older bullies, but was unable to recover in time to fully block Minato's next attack. Akami punched him in the stomach before attempting a kick to the ribs. Managing to block this with his left arm, Naruto was left helpless to the double punches to his face that left him momentarily stunned. His body felt heavy, his arms numb from Minato's blows, and a dull ache came from every spot she landed a hit. Akami just looked at her Ani in bewilderment. Why doesn't he just go down? Despite the effect of her blows that Naruto was feeling, to Akami he still looked completely fine, the toll his body was taking not showing at all. She was used to fighting opponents with enchanted stamina like herself after sparring with a fellow Uzumaki many times. But her Ani's endurance unnerved her. Not even Naruto was able to withstand her hits for long without showing clear signs of fatigue despite his Uzumaki endurance. But her Ani's own endurance seemed to be greater than both her and Naruto's. Not even Naruto could withstand a combo like that and still look practically fine. I have no choice but to use that. She quickly glanced to her Tusan in the crowd who was looking slightly worried over the state of the match. What she was going to use was an advanced combo her Tusan showed her, but banned from her using, saying they didn't want anyone to get hurt. Akami assumed they meant her since she would be performing an advanced technique, but in fact it was to keep Menma safe since the combo could hit several fatal points. Taking her stance and using the tiniest bit of chakra in her legs, she quickly closed the gap between her and her Ani-san. She punched him in the kidney so hard he would be pissing blood for a week, following it up by hitting her stunned Ani with an upper palm strike to the chin. Naruto staggered back as his brain was rattled from the strike and winded from the blow to his kidney. This was exactly what Minato wanted as she grabbed his shoulders, kneeing him in his left kidney. Using the force her kick generated, she was perfectly set up for the next blow, doing a 360-degree spin, she landed a knife strike with her right hand to his neck. What followed up was a double punch from her left to his chest and then right punch to his heart. Akami smirked at the achievement at pulling off such an advanced move, despite only being shown it once, as well as the victory she was sure had, but was shocked when she looked at her Ani who was still on his feet. No way. The smirk quickly vanished at seeing her combo had a less than derisible effect she wanted. Naruto's whole body felt numb, his arms and legs felt like lead, and his breathing was ragged as he tried to catch his breath. The sharp pain from kidneys irritated him, making him feel as if he was going to lose control of his bladder any second. His mind was still rattled, his vision was fuzzy, standing more on instinct and force of will more than anything else. Akami was getting slightly angry now. She trained hard wanting to protect her Ani and Naruto, yet in the end it all seemed pointless, now that no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't beat her Ani-san who had no training at all. She rushed him again, intending to finish this once and for all. But Naruto's vision came back a split second before she was in range and on instinct, he threw a back fist at Minato. At the speed she was going, a normal person wouldn't be able to react at all, but her Otu-san once commented that she was faster than he was at her age. The world seemed to slow down. She could clearly see Naruto's punch just inches from her face. But her reflexes were fast enough to react and begun to weave under it, but then at last second, her Ani's fist seemed to glow red, speeding up and colliding into her face. Crack. The sickly sound was hard as Naruto's fist hit Minato dead center in the nose, and blood flew everywhere. Akami was sent flying as the crowd watched as she lost the match. Naruto's head finally cleared and looked at his downed Minato and smiled at having won their match. But that only lasted a moment as a sound reached his ears. Sniff sniff wah wah wah. Naruto looked at Minato in horror as she cried, her nose broken and her face bloodied. His brotherly instinct taking over her went to help Minato, but his Koch-an and godmother Tsunade were already attending to her. Naruto, that was too much, this was only supposed to be a friendly spar. Kushina scolded, glaring at her son before going back to attending to her daughter. Tsunade's green chakra was already healing the bone fractures and mending the broken skin. Horror covered Naruto's face as he tried to reply. I didn't mean to. His stuttering was cut off by his Koch-an though. Not now Naruto, Akami is hurt. His Koch-an shouted at him and scared him, reminding him of the night years ago. Did you see that came from the crowd? Turning, Naruto saw all the spectators glaring at him and whispering amongst themselves. They kept saying he did it on purpose out of jealousy, shunning the poor boy. The villagers, Okami and Menma were heroes, and Naruto was nothing despite being the Hokage's son too. That made Naruto the bad guy for hurting a little girl so badly, who was not only a hero, but his own sister as well. Adrenaline started pumping through his veins, making the pain he felt fade as their whispers reached his ears. I can't believe that, it was just friendly spar. He did it on purpose. Yeah, he did say he wasn't the one getting hurt. Out of jealousy, all throughout the crowd people were looking at Naruto in detest. The only ones who weren't was Hinata and Hitomi, who knew full well what happened wasn't Naruto's fault. Even his own Tusan and Itato had looks of disappointment on their faces. "You're wrong, I didn't mean to," he said shakily, his voice just over a whisper. But the voices didn't stop and only seemed to get louder. His breath became more ragged as he started to sweat. "Stop it," but not one did, they just kept judging him. "Stop it," he shouted, causing everyone to look at him before he ran off. Hinata quickly followed, and Hitomi glared at the villagers who were saying that this was proof that he was guilty. Hitomi approached Kushina. "Kushina, that was going too far." Her friend only looked at her, not understanding why she was being scolded. "Naruto didn't mean to do this." Finally understanding, Kushina responded. "But this was supposed to be a friendly spar. That last blow wasn't." It's clear that Naruto wasn't holding back. Hitomi could only look at her red-headed friend, thinking if they were both watching the same match. But Naruto hasn't been trained like Okami was and couldn't really afford to hold back. She tried reasoning, but Kushina ignored her. "You saw how unscathed Naruto looked." Okami was clearly pulling punches and was keeping her blows light. Just like Okami, everyone else couldn't tell that Naruto was only standing because of his incredible endurance. However, Hitomi and Hinata, who both trained and knew of Naruto's amazing endurance and pain tolerance, could tell Naruto was feeling the hits. "That's not true, Kushina." Okami wasn't holding back either. She tried reasoning, but Kushina didn't believe her, only believing what her eyes showed her. But Okami was the one that got hurt, so why was Naruto clearly fine? Getting annoyed, Kushina growled out the last bit. Even though it was an accident, her friend making her look the bad guy still hurt. In her mind, her son needed to learn that what he did was wrong in a light spar. "Then maybe you should have trained him so he could hold back and fight her as an equal." Hitomi shouted, taking the red-haired women aback, her hormones getting the best of her as she walked off, leaving the red women to think, "Is this my fault?" She had no idea. It's not like they trained Naruto and taught him how to hold back. Jiraiya, who was deep in thought, was worried at the results. "This isn't good, Okami should have easily beaten him, even if she was holding back. We'll need to step up their training. If she can't even beat a beginner who has yet to officially start training, then how can she hold up later on?" Naruto ran far from the academy before finally stopping, his exhaustion finally taking over. His lungs hurt so much and his legs were shaking, ready to give way any second now. "Naruto-kun." The soft and soothing voice came from a worried Hinata who finally caught up to her best friend. "Hinata, I didn't mean to." Hinata shushed him, understanding sparkling in her eyes as she told him. "I know, Naruto-kun, it wasn't your fault. You just gave it your best, just like Okami did." Her words were quiet yet clear, soothing Naruto's worries. "But I hurt her, I hurt my Minato," he said, disgusted with himself. He was her Ani-san. He was supposed to protect her, not hurt her. "Naruto-kun. It's alright, you and Okami were both prepared for it and you got just as hurt." Looking into her eyes, Naruto only saw worry and acceptance, not the eyes of disappointment or disgust his family and the villagers gave him. Naruto's leg finally gave way, unable to hold themselves up, falling. Naruto was caught by Hinata. "Come on, let's get you home." She was full of worry, she's never seen Naruto so tired that he could barely stand up. Finally, home, Hinata put Naruto on the couch who just lied there silently. Fiddling with her fingers and blushing at the tired Naruto, she took a deep breath, readying herself. "And Naruto-kun?" She stuttered looking away. "Yeah," he mumbled groggily. Hinata looked down and turned red as she asked. "Why your clothes? Take them off please." It took a few seconds for her words to sink in as his eyes shot up and he jumped up looking at her. "What?" As soon as he shouted it, he grabbed his body that was riddled with pain. "Ow ow ow. Take off your clothes." And looking closely, Naruto could see Hinata was fiddling with a small jar in her hands. Realizing it was her homemade ointment, he submitted, unable to argue or treat his injuries himself with how much they hurt. Quickly taking off his shirt, Naruto exposed himself in front of the shy Hyuga. Hinata was blushing madly as she watched him take off his shirt, the muscles he had were impressive for someone their age. She was starting to overheat, steam coming out of her ears as she started to black out, but the huge bruises over his body kept her conscious. Quickly, she stroked one of the marks gently, causing a hiss of pain from the blonde boy. "Oh, sorry," Hinata said, unscrewing the jar and dapping her fingers in it, gently starting to apply the ointment to his wounds. He could already feel the relief it brought as her soft hands glided about his body. She rubbed gently into his muscles causing them to relax. Closing his eyes, he just focused on how good her fingers felt as the pain faded bit by bit as her fingers did their magic. Hinata inspected her Naruto-kun's body. It was the closest she's ever been to him shirtless and she was enjoying every second of it. His skin was soft yet hard as she explored his developing muscles, hearing a sigh of pleasure come from him. Looking up, she saw that Naruto was looking relieved and seemed to be enjoying her massage. Happy her friend and developing crush was enjoying it, she began to channel bits of chakra to her fingertips. Ukami Naruto cursed the feeling of Hinata's chakra massaging his muscles was too much. Every nerve she touched felt pleasure and warmth as she continued treating his wounds. Opening his eyes, he stared into the most beautiful lavender eyes he's ever seen. Both children's faces were bright red, seeming to get closer every second. But before anything happened, the call of nature came to Naruto as his legs shifted. Hinata-chan?" Naruto asked, feeling embarrassed and warm at their close contact. Fluttering her eyes, she looked at him expectantly, her glossy lips replied. "Yes, Naruto-kun." Her voice was sweet and enchanting, making Naruto's heart skip a beat. A part of him just wanted to ignore his need to go and let her keep doing what she was going to do. But sadly, his lower body complained as it felt like his bladder was going to burst. "I need." "Yes?" Hinata asked, leaning closer to give her Naruto-kun whatever he wanted. "I need to go," he shouted, realizing what he said. Hinata leaned back, freeing him. Shooting up, Naruto ran right to the bathroom, leaving Hinata alone. "I was so close," she complained. It was the perfect moment and she let it go. Her fingers went to her lips, imagining what it would feel like to have his lips upon hers. They kissed each other on the cheek a few times as a thank you, but nothing more, and Hinata was looking forward to their first real kiss. In the bathroom, Naruto quickly pulled his pants down, relieving himself of his bladder's contents. He looked down at the shocking sight of the red of his blood mixed into his pee. "Ah." His scream echoed throughout the house, and Hinata quickly rushed to his aid. "Naruto-kun, what's wrong?" Her mouth hung open at her Naruto-kun standing there naked as the day he was born. Blood came from her own nose as she caught sight of his lower bits before promptly passing out. "Why couldn't this have happened when we older?" she cursed, knowing that the sight of an older Naruto-kun would be all the sweeter. Naruto's brain shut down at Hinata seeing him in the nude, eyes rolling in the back of his head, he promptly joined his Hinata-chan on the floor. Chapter 6. The clan heir. Author's note: the guest reviewer who made the reference about the scene in chapter 1 being the same in Fairy Tail, that is indeed so. This isn't exactly a crossover, though, since besides the dragons and the odd reference to Fairy Tail universe, there will be no involvement with that world or its characters. I am still unsure about the actual conditions for the crossover, but I myself are a bit iffy on them. I may use ideas, powers and characters from other series, but I will always adapt them and only stay in the Narutoverse. Last note: the hater that tells NarHina fans to go and kill themselves is back. It was so quiet and nice this past week, but now he's back. If that guest reviewer reads this, stop following stories with an account so you can just hate on people and give death threats. Grow up. I'm sure you have better things to do with your time than write pointless reviews and threats that go against fanfic's term of use. An orange and green blur jumped across the rooftops of Konoha, being chased by black blur that was easily keeping up with the orange blur. "Naruto. Get back here now and I'll go easy on you." The black blur shouted as it chased a yellow-haired 9-year-old boy. "Come on Shisui, it wasn't me this time. Promise." Naruto shouted, looking back at his pursuer whose Sharingan eyes were active. "Yeah, just like you weren't responsible for dyeing the uniforms of the police pink or the stink bomb on the main road." The Uchiha shouted back, a small smirk at the youth's pranks. "Got to admit the kid is good. It's no surprise no one has caught him yet." Seeing the yellow and orange blur Naruto became, Shisui couldn't help but think the boy was just like his old man. In his year of pulling pranks, Naruto has not been caught once by any of the Uchiha police, not even the regular forces. Granted, Shushi has never gotten serious, enjoying his little matches of speed with the future Yellow Flash. "Hey. Come on, I was only trying to give you guys a new look. Pink is a good color for you. It makes you seem less broody." Grinning at his purser, making him get slightly annoyed. Sneaking into the Uchiha compound was hard, but so worth it, he thought, the memory of all the pink Uchiha popping up in his mind. "And that was almost made our official color thanks to you." A tick mark appeared as he remembered how many of the clan's women wanted to keep the new look. "Thank Kami that there are more males than females in the clan, otherwise I would be stuck in pink right now." The man shivered. The thought of him in a pink suit was just too embarrassing. "See? At least someone knows the glory of my pranks." Naruto shouted, taunting Shisui further. "Just turn yourself in and you'll only get a night in jail." He threatened, though he knew the boy well enough that he would never take the threat. "I'm telling you, it wasn't me." The Konoha policeman raised an eyebrow as he sarcastically replied. "And I'm sure someone else covered that store in catnip and that someone is also not in class like they should be." Naruto looked away guilty, sweat dripping down his face, realizing he was mostly caught. Damn, should have waited until after the academy. As Naruto had this thought, a black figure appeared in front of him. He crashed into the figure and brought the chase to an end. As it grabbed his shoulder, Naruto looked up at his captor to see a white weasel mask. Weasel, long time no see. Naruto smiled at the young Anbu, who only gave the boy a curious look. Up to trouble again, Naruto? The masked man asked. Naruto faked being innocent. Well, you know, somebody gets pranked and I'm instantly the number one suspect. It's just not fair, I tell you. Naruto's arms shot up in exaggeration. Unfortunately, the Anbu wasn't going to buy it and gripped the boy's shoulder tighter. Fine, I give. I'll come quietly. Head bowed, the Anbu didn't notice the smirk on the boy's face as he quickly did hand signs. In a poof smoke, Naruto disappeared and standing before the Anbu was someone else. Itachi-kun purred out a seductive voice. The Anbu froze as standing before him was his naked girlfriend, Izumi. The transformation was perfect, down to her slender figure and boastful breast. This second of distraction was enough time as the girl smiled sickly, kicking him in the groin. The Anbu turned as white as stone, unmoving, as the woman turned back into a boy and made his escape. Shisui landed beside Itachi, looking at the man in pity. The masked man's eyes glowed red, 3 tomo spinning into existence, glaring at his best friend. Not a word of this to anyone. Don't worry, your secret is safe with me. The Shunshin, body flicker, ninja assured, eyes closed, sweat dropping down his face as he recalled his own embarrassing moment. The brat got me too by changing into Naori-chan. He opened his eyes, 3 of his own tomo in a sea of deep red appeared in each. Let's get him. With that, the 2 strongest Uchiha disappeared into smokeless Shunshin, chasing their prey. The chase went on for minutes with Naruto using every trick in the book. Weaving through the busy streets of village to using his extensive knowledge of the village's back alleys. Alas, it was no use against the Uchiha's superior visual jutsu, who could track him with ease through the crowd and easily kept up with him in a match of speed. Naruto was currently chased by Shisui in one of Konoha's many alleys, preparing to make one of his famous escapes. But Itachi cut off his escape route with Shisui capturing the poor boy. Finally got you. The Uchiha said in victory, but Naruto only smiled as with a flick of his hand, a small ball was thrown into the air. It was small, about Naruto's palm size, but both Uchiha Sharingan could easily spot the object, which cracked in slow motion and a bright light emitted from it. Both Uchihas were defenseless as a bright light blinded them, their Sharingan improved eyesight making it worse. To a normal ninja, it would only be a brief light that blinded them for a second, but due to the Uchiha's close proximity and their eyes, the light hurt worse, blinding them far longer than normal. In the confusion, Shisui let go of Naruto, covering his eyes, trying to block out the light in pain. Using this opportunity, Naruto escaped from the Uchiha's clutches. So long, losers. Taunting them, Naruto made his escape, Shisui growling as he did. However, his sensitive ears picked up the familiar sound of leaf crunching, and the ninja lunged at the sound, assuming it was his prey. His arm quickly grabbed the boy in a headlock, tightening them as both of them fell to the ground. Don't worry, Itachi, I got him. No, you don't, you got me, Baka. The voice was rough and mature. A far cry from the child's voice his target had. His vision now clearing, Shisui looked down to see a mop of black hair. Oops, sorry Itachi. Quickly letting go, Itachi fell to the floor, his teary red eyes glaring at the blurry form of his best friend. Quickly picking up his mask and getting up, the Anbu spoke in a calm voice. Let's go, he couldn't have gotten far. Itachi ordered and both him and Shisui jumped out of the alley. Not risking using Shunshin when their vision was compromised. After minutes passed, a figure crawled out behind several bins. It was pitch black, looking almost as if it merged into the shadows. As the figure came out, the shadows seemed to recede and yellow hair and blue eyes could finally be seen. His breathing was almost non-existent, his eyes vacant and motionless to the point that without getting a closer look, people would think he was a statue instead of a person. The figure stopped, his eyes taking in his surroundings, and after a few more minutes, a slight sparkle appeared in his blue eyes, slowly getting brighter along with his growing breathing and heartbeat as his presence and chakra slowly came back into existence. Suckers, they should have checked here before going off somewhere else. After years of pranking ninja and running away, Naruto easily mastered the skill of hiding his presence. His stealth and trap-making marks were the only category that he beat his siblings at. But it's not like Kacchan and Toussaint care about that. Taking a deep breath, Naruto slowly moved forward, making sure to hide himself and his presence as best he could as he made his way to the academy. Naruto slowly made his way into the classroom, still hiding, hoping to sneak in. About time you got here, Naruto. His sensei's voice growled out. Iruka-sensei, I was just. Naruto sweated, cursing how his teacher was able to find him nowadays. Save it and take your seat. I expect you to stay after class and during lunch as well. Iruka ordered with authority. The boy was a wonder to him. His stealth skills were so good that when he first had been assigned as his teacher, he snuck in and out without him noticing. Heck, even now, Iruka could only figure out when Naruto was sneaking in or out by keeping an eye on Hinata, whose Byakugan would activate at timely intervals, searching for the blonde boy. I swear, if you only applied yourself more, you could easily be as good as your siblings, maybe even better. Sighing, their sensei was brought out of his thoughts by an annoyed voice. Really, Ani-san, another prank. Grow up and take this seriously already. The boy's Minato stated, annoyed, though at the end her voice changed into a slight plea. Despite what her Kachan said, their Ani didn't join in training after starting the academy. After getting hurt by her Ani during the exhibition match, and her Ani's behavior during lessons lead her to the conclusion of why their Kachan said he wasn't ready. Come on Ani, if you only stop this foolishness, you could start training with Tusan and Kachan too. Frowning at his Minato, Naruto slowly made his way to his seat. But I am trying Minato. Hinata was glaring at Akami, appalled at her behavior. How dare you? Naruto-kun has been training really hard, yet all you do is look down on him. Despite their close relationship at first, the more Akami drifted away from Naruto, the more she also drifted away from his siblings. She was still their friend after all, they were still Naruto's family, but there was a strain among their relationship. When she heard the seat next to her being pulled back, she gave a brilliant smile as her Naruto-kun sat next to her, like always. Menma glared at Naruto. The boy tried to sit next to Hinata-chan many times, but his one-e would either pull him away to sit next to her, or Hinata would wait until the last second and pick a space with an empty chair for Naruto. The day quickly passed with Naruto trying to not fall asleep while he took down some notes. The day now over, he watched as his siblings ran to their parents, who were waiting just outside the gate. The happy family quickly left for home, except Naruto wasn't with them, nor did they question his absence. Naruto-kun? Hinata asked, her hand touching his. Naruto smiled at the contact, making him feel a little better. Naruto-kun, why don't you ask your parents for training again? Hinata asked. She knew the answer he would give, but she hoped if he asked, his parents might actually do something for once. No. Akami and Menma needed more, and I'm sure they'll get back to me eventually. His voice grew weak at the end, knowing that it was unlikely, but still chose to believe in his family. But Naruto-kun, it's been ages now, and Menma and Akami are top of the class already. Surely they could spend some time with you now. She hated how his parents kept putting the matter off. But what she hated worse was that Naruto was letting it happen with a smile. Naruto was doing well training with her and her Kachan, but there was a limit on how much Naruto could learn and improve like that. Naruto was easily average in the class, but unlike his siblings and her, he didn't learn a clan style and had yet to develop his own, above the basics taught in the academy. The only things Naruto had going for him were his stealth, trap making, and thanks to her and her Kachan, his chakra control. Naruto-kun, you need to learn new styles and techniques of your own like everyone else. As she cursed the fact she couldn't teach him the gentle fist, and her Otu-san got so mad when she actually tried, making Naruto refuse any training that would get her in trouble. Still, Akami and Menma needed more. Don't worry, I'm sure I'll start training soon. Naruto smiled, but Hinata could easily see it was forced. Hey Naruto-kun, Hinata-chan. Came a soft voice. They saw a woman with short black hair wearing a blue robe coming towards them. You guys ready for your lesson? The women smiled. Shizune-sensei. Both children greet happily. You bet we are. What are we going to learn today? Naruto asked excitedly with a real smile, making the Hyuga girl next to him happy. Settle down Naruto-kun. I think you're going to enjoy today's lesson a lot. Shizune bent down, getting closer to the boy's level. Today I'm going to teach you the chakra scalpel. The boy's eyes sparkled with excitement at this. It would be one of the first real jutsu he would be learning in ages. Now I'm only going to teach how to do it with a finger at first, but if you do well, I'll start showing you how to make a bigger one, okay? Naruto nodded excitedly. This would be one of the only jutsu he had with real combat potential. Shizune led her students away, remembering when the medical training program was first implemented. Flashback, Shizune was walking down the corridor, carrying a box full of bandages. With Tsunade's help, they were finally able to get approval for the medical ninja program, and as the Slug Sanin's apprentice, she would be the one teaching the class. I can't wait. A bright smile spread across her face at the thought of teaching for the first time. Opening the door, she went to the front desk and setting her things down, she introduced herself. Hello, I'm Shizune Kato, and I'll be your sensei for medical class until you graduate. She looked around, not surprised that all of her students were girls, but then a surprised look came over her, spotting the only boy in her class. Isn't that Naruto? She was acquainted with the Hokage's children, but like Tsunade, she wasn't close to Naruto at all and only heard he was a troublemaker. Shaking her thoughts, she decided to give him the benefit of the doubt and teach her lesson. Now I'm going to teach you how to apply bandages first. Now I know this is very basic and you learn this in class, but this is an important tool that could mean the difference between saving a person's life or them bleeding out. Along with this, I will be teaching different ways to tie them based on the injury as well ointments and medicines that you can apply to prevent infection and quick healing of said injury. The class was over quickly, many students doing well. While Shizune was cleaning up, she noticed two students were still there. It was Naruto and the Hyuga girl. Approaching, she saw that the boy was untying and then retying the bandages according to the girl instructions. Smiling at Naruto's hard work, she asked, "Do you want any help?" After that, Naruto and Hinata would stay behind, getting extra training and then helping Shizune clean up as thanks. A year after, the day has been over a year since the medical program started and Shizune was finally going to start teaching the most basic medical jutsu, mystical palm technique. The students were eager to learn, though most of them had trouble, mostly because of the dead fish they were using it. The only ones who were doing well was a pink-haired girl, who had the control and did the jutsu perfectly, but could only hold it for 10 seconds before being completely exhausted afterwards. The best girl by far was Hinata, who not only did it perfectly, but was able to hold it long enough to revive the fish, easily the best in the class. At least she was until she got to Naruto. His control wasn't perfect, but it was close. But the odd thing was that the fish revived quicker than Hinata's. Shizune found this strange, but despite the difference in control, no matter how many times Naruto did it, he would always beat Hinata in reviving the fish. Maybe he's focusing more on the inside of the fish rather than outside, where I can't see it. That theory was what she came up with, and though Naruto was slow in the theory and medicine aspects of the course, he excelled in the actual medical jutsu part, easily doing most jutsu on his first try, even if they weren't perfect. End of flashback. Shizune walked into the classroom carrying a box. Naruto and Hinata helping, each carrying their own boxes. She gave a sickly smile as she turned to the class. "Today class, I'm going to be teaching you the chakra scalpel." The whole class broke out in cheers. However, their sensei's next words put an end to it. "Great, it's nice to see you all so enthusiastic about dissections for once." Silence filled the room as the whole class froze. Half of students turned green as Shizune pulled out another dead fish. Despite the fact that her remaining students didn't quit after they learned medical training was a lot grosser than they hoped, they still couldn't quite hold themselves together. Though there were a few exceptions, their sensei smiled, looking towards Hinata and Naruto, who were handing out the samples to all the other students. "Okay, now that everyone has a fish, I want you to dissect it like usual." She smiled and a questioning hand suddenly shot up. "But sensei, we don't have any tools," asked Sakura, not understanding how they were supposed to do the task. "That's easy." She held up a finger and a blue glow emanated from it before shaping into a blade. "Focus your chakra into your finger and then image a blade or better yet, a scalpel, forming out of it." "But won't our hands get dirty if we do that?" Sakura yelled. She understood that they needed to do this to learn, but she was still far from comfortable getting blood all over her favorite dress. Only if the chakra is not sharp or strong enough. Otherwise it will act like a barrier. When working in the hospital or medical camps, special custom-made gloves are given that are designed to not interfere with your chakra and allow the quick removal of the bloodstained gloves so that you can move on to the next patient. However, on the field, you only have a limited source of them or will be required to provide treatment immediately on site. Because of this, you need to learn to not only shape your chakra into a tool to use, but also as a barrier that prevents bacteria on your hands infecting the patient. That seemed to satisfy any questions for now as Sakura and several of the more squeamish girls gulped at their fish. "Okay, I want you to remove the organs in the exact order I instructed you as last time. Marks will be given based on the quality of the cuts and order at which the organs are removed, as well as the condition they are in once removed." With those words, everyone tried focusing chakra to their fingers. Hinata was focusing hard, her Byakugan active as a blue glow emanated from her fingertip and then slowly formed into a scalpel that was a few inches away from her hand. Smiling at her success, she looked down, knowing exactly where to cut and how. Using chakra in this way was no different than the usual gentle fist, only a little more focused with continuous output. Naruto did the same, however there was sweat dripping down his face as he slowly made the blade extend from his fingertip. He managed to do it, but unlike Hinata, who literally had a translucent scalpel equipped with a little curved blade at the end, his blade extends from his fingertip and was as wide as his finger before it shrunk in on itself at the very end. Smiling at Hinata, they both got to work on their fishes. On the other side of the room, Sakura easily managed to form the blade around her finger and started working, but she kept getting splodges of blood on her hand. Shizune watched all the students and was extremely happy at Naruto, and Hinata's success looks like those two figured out the little trick to it. Turning to Sakura, she saw the splodges of blood all over her hands. "I'm a bit disappointed that she didn't figure it out though, when she is one of the smartest in the class, though her control is much better compared to the other students." From where she was, she could see that Sakura's finger was entirely covered and was sharp. But sadly, that wasn't what she was looking for. There was a hidden test that the students needed to figure out. Instead of forming the blade around your finger, you need to focus it to your fingertips and then extend it outward. This method allows you to alter the size and shape of the blade for much more flexibility. But also, it prevents the larger than necessary finger from causing damage by working at a safe distance and preventing bacteria from infecting your patient as you work. This trick also saves chakra and is needed for major operations when using chakra. Despite only 2 students figuring it out, Shizune was more than happy with her class so far. Sakura was already using genin level techniques when using medical jutsu. And the tricks Naruto and Hinata would end up using ranged from chunin to jonin, very impressive for their age. Most medical ninja don't learn these tricks on their own without years of experience under their belt. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them succeeded Tsunade-sama and I as Konoha leading medics one day. Yep, Konoha's future medics were in good hand with this lot. Both Naruto and Hinata were walking outside their medical class now over. The blonde boy glanced to the tree and then the academy gate, hoping to see his own family ready to pick him up. But sadly, that was not the case. Frowning at this, Naruto looked down, trying to hide his face from his best friend. Why do I even bother? They're not going to be there, they never are. Aka-chan. Hinata shouts in surprise. Looking up, Naruto sees a figure in a wheelchair approaching. As she comes closer, the 2 children could see a wheelchair-bound Hitomi being pushed by her maid, Natsu. The poor woman lost the use of her legs during the birth of her second child, the damage too severe for even the legendary Tsunade to fix. Hinata rushed over, worried for her Aka-san. Aka-san, you shouldn't have come. I could have made it home by myself. She worryingly said, knowing her Aka-san was in no condition to pick her up like she used to. But still her Aka-chan persisted, coming to pick her up every day with the aid of her handmaiden. Nonsense, Hina-chan, is it so wrong for me to come and pick up my little baby? Hitomi opened her arms, accepting a hug from Hinata. But I'm not a baby anymore, Aka-san. Hinata's head looked up from the leaning place of her Aka-san's bosom to glare at her. Nope. You will always be my little girl, Hina-chan. She told her child, patting Hinata's hair as she did. Knowing there was nothing she could do about her Aka-san, she sent a glare to Natsu, whose lips moved in a silent apology, making it obvious that Hitomi's handmaiden tried to stop her. Looking at Naruto, Hitomi offered. Naruto-kun, would you like us to walk you home? The boy cheered up at seeing his aunt. No. It's my job to escort you home. Naruto and Hitomi smiled as she held out her hand. Well then, would you be a good gentleman and escort us home? Naruto took the offered hand while Hinata took the other as the group started their walk to the Hyuga compound. Naruto held Hitomi's hand tightly. It was rare for him to get a chance to hold his own Kachan's hand, with both of them being occupied by his Amato and Itaudo. So, despite his insistence that he was just properly escorting a lady home, he really found comfort in holding Hitomi's hand. So, where's the little firecracker today? Naruto asked, wondering where their missing member was. Hitomi's head bowed as she replied, her voice filled with sadness and worry. Hanabi-chan is training with her Otu-san again today and couldn't make it. She was worried. Her husband has been focusing on Hanabi more and more lately, making her grow distant from both her Aka-san and Wani-san. Hinata was having similar concerns, missing her own Amato immensely. After dropping them off at the Hyuga compound, Naruto decided to go home. I'm home. Naruto called as he entered his house, but he didn't know if he could still call it home. Despite his shout having echoed throughout the house, no one answered back with welcome home. Walking into the kitchen, the lights still on, he could see his parents and siblings were sitting down, ready for dinner, hardly noticing he just entered the room as he took his normal seat. Dinner was as usual for the Namikaze household. His Kachan and Two-cent smiled as his siblings talked about today's training and what happened at the academy. It wasn't until after dinner that it all strayed from the norm. I have an announcement to make. His Two-cent announced. His siblings looked at him with expecting eyes while Naruto just rolled his, knowing it wouldn't involve him. Pulling out a piece of paper with a Uzumaki crest on it, he continued. Sensei and I have spoken, and we decided it would be best to give the position of clan heir to either Akami or Menma. His Two-cent smiled blatantly, Menma as well. How couldn't he? The fact that their Two-cent was going to make one of them clan heir was the same as acknowledging their abilities to the highest degree. However, 3 people were not as ecstatic about the announcement. Kushina looked at her husband in shock, not having heard anything about this. Akami was the same, looking at her Two-cent, not believing what he was saying. But the third and most vocal of trio voiced his outrage. But I'm clan heir. Naruto roared across the table, earning a look of shock from his Kachan and Amato, but only displeasure from his Two-cent. Naruto, sit down and I'll explain. Minato ordered, offended that his own son would shout at him in such a manner. What's there to explain? I'm the oldest and that makes me clan heir, it's how it's always been. Normally, Naruto would be calm and put a fake smile when his Tusan made a decision. But not this time. Even though he didn't start training in the Uzumaki arts, he still studied and worked hard with Hinata to prepare for the day he would take over their clan. He even doubled his efforts when he found out how like the position was to that of the Hokage and that everything he would learn as clan head would also be needed as Hokage. The fact he was clan heir was the only thing that really made him part of this family and was an important step for his dream of becoming Hokage. Naruto. Minato growled in a warning tone as he started explaining his decision. Menma and Akami have both worked hard, achieved top of their class, even mastering the Rasengan. They more than earned this and showed that they both have what it takes to do the role. Minato couldn't really blame his son, they never really talked about who would become the heir, and Naruto, as the oldest and firstborn, would have naturally assumed it was him. But being clan heir requires more than just being born into it, but the skill and knowledge to do the job, as well as the willingness to sacrifice yourself for the clan. But Naruto tried to say, but his Tusan just glared at him, causing him to keep quiet. However, an unlikely person came to his defense. Ani-san's right. Everyone looked at Akami, who made her voice heard, shouting her views to her family. Ani-san is clan heir and it is his right. We just can't take that away from him. Minato knew her Ani was a lot of things. He was reckless, rude and never took his schoolwork or training seriously. But she still loved him and would never take what belonged to him. Minato only looked sadly at Akami. Out of the two, he wanted her to take the position. She was smart and mature like him and was clearly the stronger of the two, as well as having the knowledge and manners to take part in politics the future position held. He just knew the Uzumaki clan would be in good hands with her. But he couldn't force her to take the title if she didn't want it. That only left Menma. If he didn't want it, Minato would have to leave things as they were and let Naruto keep the title. Hoping he would mature with age and grow into it. I really hope he accepts. Naruto's just not fit for a role like this. He's too like Kushina and wouldn't be able to keep his emotions in check. His thoughts were unnecessary as his youngest child spoke up. Then I'll take it. Menma raised his hands, happy to have one up on his Ani. His Ani always beat him at everything but training, and in the young boy's mind, being a ninja was his thing. The fact that his Tusan was recognizing his abilities made him happy, making him think that he deserved this. Ani, you have a lot of things already, even Hinata-chan pays more attention to you, but this being a ninja and now clan heir is mine. Another reason he wanted the title was because he knew Hinata was heir to her clan and hoped it would help him get closer to the shy Hyuga he had a crush on since forever. Akami only looked at Itato in shock. You can't be serious. Menma glared back, raising his own voice to his Minato for the first time. And why not? We trained for this, we worked hard, spending countless hours training and getting stronger. Either of us deserve this more than Ani who only messes around. Menma was angry at his Minato's response. He always hated that while they were training, his Ani was goofing around with Hinata-chan. Both him and his Wani-chan both put the effort in, so why shouldn't they reap the benefits? We worked hard for this, I worked really hard, so why can't I enjoy and accept it? Seeing that this discussion was spinning out of control, Minato decided to end it. That's enough. Menma will finalize the agreement tomorrow. For now, think on it. Being clan heir is a big job and is not one to take on lightly. Minato dismissed the family. Naruto ran off and his Itato left the room after, smiling, having already decided to accept the title. Only his daughter and wife remained behind for answers. Minato, what was that? How could you make that decision without my consent? Minato looked at his angry wife. It's as I told you, both Menma and Akami worked hard. They even mastered the Rasengan a few months ago, which we both agreed to make a clan jutsu, they deserve this. Was Minato's response, hoping to placate his wife. But what about Naruto? His wife asked. He knew it would be hard to convince her, but he needed to. It was obvious that Naruto wasn't suited to the task. Kushina-chan, you know as well as I that Naruto does nothing but goofs around, playing pranks on people or getting into fights. Is that really the attitude we want for a clan heir, especially when the Uzumaki clan is almost extinct? Kushina wavered a bit. She knew all too well what he meant, after all the complaints from his pranks and fights get forwarded to her as his mother. The mentioning of her dying clan was the final nail though, because it made her think what her clan needed to survive and rebuild itself. Being clan heir was basically deciding the future of the clan. Could Naruto do it? Could he rebuild our clan back to its former glory? Kushina was at a loss. Her instincts as mother was screaming at her that it was wrong and that Naruto should keep the title. But the clan matriarch side of her was telling her not to let her emotions rule her and consider Minato's proposal. That it was what was good for the clan. See Kushina, you know as well as I do that our clan needs someone strong and dependable to rebuild itself, which both Menma and Akami are. Kushina could only stay silent as a mother, she wanted no part in it. But as the last Uzumaki, she couldn't outright say that her husband was in the wrong if you thought about the clan's future. Seeing his wife go unusually quiet, he knew he got through to her. Turning to their daughter who was still in the room, he asked. Okami, are you sure you don't want it? You've earned the right to it as much as Menma has. Okami only shook her head. Sure, she could see where her parents were coming from, her Ani wasn't the smartest or the most reliable person, but she just couldn't agree to something like this, not to her own Ani. No. I want no part in this. With that, Okami stormed out herself, knowing she wouldn't be able to keep calm for much longer. Naruto ran, his feet taking him to one of the many training grounds he and Hinata made use of. Leaning on one of the training posts, he collapsed, hugging his knees to himself. What am I supposed to do now? He had his title taken from him, but it was also basically the same as taking his dream away from him. No matter what I do, he would just choose Menma or Okami to be Hokage anyway, he's already given them the clan heir title. Tears started falling, the image of Hinata appearing in his mind, her smiling face as she told him. I just know you will be Hokage one day, Naruto-kun, you're the only Hokage. She said those words with such sincerity. She truly believed in him. She was truly the only one who was on his side and no one else's. I'm sorry Hinata-chan, I let you down. I just can't do it. Not when everyone just seems to be against me. Before he knew it, the area changed. He now sat on what looked like a lake. A strange glow shone on him. Looking up, he saw the change in scenery, and the source of the light was a bright and beautiful rainbow egg. He stared in wonder at the out-of-this-world sight, and cracks seemed to appear on the object, but there were no sounds of something breaking, they just appeared. The light of the egg where what he thought were creeks turned into illuminating wings made of rainbow feathers. It now looked like an egg with wings, but slowly, the oval shape of the egg morphed, forming a body, then a head, followed by legs. Naruto looked at the beast in awe, too taken by its beauty to be afraid. There, hovering in air was a reptile, shimmering rainbow scales shaped like ovals covered the beast's whole body, opal-like claws extending from what looked like hands on each of its 4 legs. Its head started gaining detail, and Naruto could see a V-shaped like neck, a flat-like head that got wider the further away it got from the mouth, ending in 2 horns that, like the claws, seemed to be made of opal. The eyes wavered between every color known until they settled on sapphire blue, but within the ocean of blue were silted pupils that continued to shimmer in different colors. We meet at last, hatchling. I am the rainbow dragon Iris. The beast said, though there were traces of aurora as its voice rose, the voice itself was almost feminine, soothing as it introduced itself. But at the same time a bunch of different voices could be heard at every word at a lower pitch, as if several people were speaking at the same time. Naruto and the dragon stared at each other. A meeting that would change his life forever. The mythical beast's wings stretched out as it hovered in the air, bathing the whole world in its divine-like light as it gazed at its new child. What if Naruto neglected by family dragon summoner NarHina? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.